It is day 5 of Aaron Rodgers watch here on Steelers Talk, and you just gotta hope, man, that today we finally get an answer from the 4-time MVP. But at this point, who knows when Aaron Rodgers will emerge with an answer. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. We'll be joined by our producer, Jeffrey Cooperstein, here in just a second. Thank you to everybody joining at the beginning of today's show. You guys are the real ones. We've already got over 280 people watching live around the world. And, Coop, today it is...
Is it the day?
I hope it's the day.
Me too.
That's what I'll say, Coop. Tomorrow, Rodgers is slated to appear at a charity flag football event.
Yep.
And I think it would be kind of awkward, and there would be a big sense of, awkward,
Elephant in the room.
elephant in the room type of feeling if he shows up to that, and he's not going to announce it at a charity flag football event, or who knows? It is Aaron Rodgers, but at this point, we got the report on Monday that the Steelers are engaged in talks with Aaron Rodgers, which tells me that he was kind of their main target at quarterback, and they have been willing to wait to this point for an answer, which tells me that Rodgers has been kind of their, number one target this entire process. They only offered Justin Fields $15 million. They weren't willing to go higher than that. That's Daniel Jones money. Sam Darnold, apparently they weren't willing to give him a ton of money.
Raji's been the target from day one.
I think Raji's been Mike Tomlin's guy, and they're willing to wait for him, and they must feel pretty good about their chances of getting him at this point. Because if they're wrong, then they
are in trouble.
Then they are in a tough spot for a team that claims that they are trying to win now. Because for as much as I appreciate Mason Rudolph and as much as I consider him a Steelers legend, I don't think you are I think the chances of you winning a Super Bowl with him as your starting quarterback are near zero. Now, you might say the chances of the Steelers winning a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers are zero. That might be your take, and you might be right about that. But I think your chances are higher and your upside as a team is higher with Aaron Rodgers on your team than, say, a Mason Rudolph or, say, with Jackson Dart as a rookie starter or, as even Tyler Shuck. I'm higher on Tyler Shuck, but I don't think he can come in here and win a Super Bowl year one. So if the team is trying to win a Super Bowl and that's what they claim to be trying to do, it seems like Aaron Rodgers is really the only guy left available that could even somewhat possibly get them to that point at the position. Now, the Steelers don't need a superstar level quarterback to be a good team. All right? They want to have a good run game. They want that offensive line to develop this year. They want to have a great defense. They want to, have that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith dynamic in the wide receiver room with DK Metcalf and George Pickens. But I guess we'll see what happens here in terms of the Aaron Rodgers stuff. John Masood, our first super chat of the day, comes in with a 10. Shout out to John, my man. Says, Jack, Cassivo, Coop.
What up, John?
What up, John? Good to see you. We'll be answering questions throughout the day. Of course, we'll be watching the Pat McAfee show throughout the afternoon. See if Rodgers makes some sort of surprise appearance, and if not, we will say goodbye at least until for the weekend here, because Coop and I are slated to have off days. Both on Saturday.
Something tells me
Saturday and Sunday is when we're slated to be off. So we won't be going live tomorrow or Sunday if Rodgers is not signed by then. We'll be back on Monday to continue these Aaron Rodgers watch live shows if he still hasn't signed by then. But it's going to be an interesting thing because I've been saying all week I don't think he's going to extend this past the weekend. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers' agent, according to Diana Rossini, has told the Steelers and the Giants that he expects Rodgers to announce his decision, quote unquote, soon. When? How long?
What is soon?
What is soon? Is that today? Is that this weekend? Is that another week? Who knows at this point? It's Aaron Rodgers. He's gonna dance to the beat of his own drum. He is on nobody else's timetable except his own. And he's going to take his time to decide what's best for him. He can do that. He has every right to do that because he has every right to do that. at this point because he's not contractually obligated
He's a
to
free
do
agent.
anything. He's a free agent. He's free to do what he wants. But before we get into your super chats, your questions, and we talk more about the Steelers quarterback situation here, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. And the time for spring cleaning has officially come here, ladies and gentlemen. And to be honest, I'm kind of excited for this time of the year because clean out some of the old clothes that you never wear anymore. You get your kitchen organized, you do all that stuff, and you really do a good job organizing your place. I'm also really excited to get rid of my old deodorant. I'm just starting to use Mando Whole Body Deodorant, and it's been an absolute game changer. From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Mando is safe to use anywhere on your body, is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Also, Mando's entire line of products are baking soda free, paraben free, and you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, or my personal favorite, Bourbon Leather, which is a really masculine scent, and I really think it smells great, guys. New customers get $5 off a starter pack when you use our exclusive code at chat at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and or deodorant wipes, which are highly recommended as well. Plus, you get free shipping. Guys, personally, my favorite product in the entire line here with Mando is the body wash. I have a big bottle of it at home. I kind of started with like this kind of tiny bottle that they first gave us the samples for when we started partnering with Mando. And let me tell you guys, I'm absolutely hooked on this stuff. It makes you smell fresh for 72 hours. So whenever we have long days at the office, whatever the case may be, I know I'm not going to be smelling like BO, and I'm going to be smelling fresh. And my coworkers, Coop, and everybody else here is going to be smelling fresh as well with these products. So, as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. $5 super chat from Chris here. Says, Jack, I don't want Aaron Rodgers. I want to give Rudolph a wide receiver like Kupp because next year we are drafting our franchise quarterback anyway. Give Rudolph weapons. Listen, man. I like I said before, I like Mason Rudolph. All right, I like him as a backup. I think that if he needs to start this year, I think that he's got a good deep ball. He has some chemistry with the guys in the locker room. All these different things. But, I think that his 3-game run at the end of the 2023 season has kind of turned him into a Steelers legend, and for good reason, in my opinion. I consider him a Steelers legend. But we have to remember that the teams that he played were the 31st ranked defense in the league in the Cincinnati Bengals that year, the 30th ranked defense in the league that year in the Seattle Seahawks, and then the Ravens backups. All right. And he barely beat the Ravens and he barely beat the Seahawks. All right. So, and then he went into the playoffs and he played mediocre against the Buffalo Bills, and they lost by multiple scores. So I think that there was a reason why the Steelers moved off of Mason Rudolph last year. I think it was the right decision to move off of Mason Rudolph and bring in Russell Wilson, especially at the price tag that they got Russ last year. I've seen some people say on Twitter that the Steelers made the wrong decision moving off of Mason Rudolph last year. That's not true. He was 4 times as expensive as Russell Wilson and Justin Fields were combined. So I disagree with that. I'm happy he's back. He's on a cheap deal that is a backup level contract. But Cooper Kupp, a number 3 receiver at this point is, I would rather spend that money on Aaron Rodgers because I think that Rodgers is a legit upgrade at the position, even over what you had at Russell Wilson last year. That's my personal opinion. And Cooper Kupp, and if you want somebody that separates, you had one of the lowest separation rates in the National Football League last year. I don't think Mason Rudolph with Cooper Kupp is turning this team into a winner.
Whatever happened to Russie, Cuppy, and DeCussy?
Yeah, no, but and it sounds like the Steelers are out on Cooper Kupp. They're not even pursuing him at this point. Apparently, right now the teams in on Cooper Kupp are the Seattle Seahawks, the Dallas Cowboys, and the New Orleans Saints.
And then
the Steelers are not in the conversation right now.
Schefter also said that he thinks the Cowboys are still an unlikely destination, even though they're in on them.
It's sounding like Cooper Kupp's going to be a Seattle Seahawk today. That's what it feels like. It feels like He's going to go to the Seahawks.
You had mentioned the Jaguars, and it sounds like they weren't in on him either. I
Yeah,
thought that would have been a good fit.
Yeah, Benjamin Albright kind of connected Kupp to the Jaguars last week, and Albright's usually pretty plugged in. And it makes sense because Liam Cohen used to work for Sean McVay with the Rams. He has a little bit of a connection there with Cooper. It made sense that they would bring in Cooper Kupp there in Jacksonville, but that just ended up not being the case. $5 from Gary Frank says, "Hey Jack, Coop, Cassie,
what up, Gary?
We should why should we pay Fields $15 a year when we got Mason for $4 a year? Could do worse. Could have Watson and Pickett."
Ain't that
LOL.
the truth?
Yeah, man. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the Cleveland Browns right now. I'm glad that we're Pittsburgh Steelers fans and not Cleveland Browns fans. But if you have, to be frank, if you have Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback next year, you have a bottom 5 starting quarterback in the league. And that's with all due respect to Mason. Okay. I appreciate Mason for what he is. He's got a pretty decent deep ball. He can play within rhythm. He actually does a pretty decent job avoiding sacks. He was top 10 in pressure to sack ratio last year. He had a lower sack percentage than Aaron Rodgers last year, so there's that. But his big time throw percentage didn't even rank in the top 35 last year. His EPA per play barely ranked inside the top 30. He was 30th. Mason Rudolph is an extremely limited starting quarterback option if that's who you're going with. So Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, still has the arm talent. He is a much better mental processor than Mason Rudolph is. He still has way better arm talent, in my opinion, than Mason Rudolph does. And, I would personally, still be pursuing Aaron Rodgers, which is what the Steelers are doing right now. So I think that if you miss out on Rodgers, you kind of turn your focus back to the NFL draft and you try to take a rookie that you believe in and you try to develop him. And then you have Mason Rudolph as a bridge quarterback option. But for a team that is trying to win a Super Bowl and has said they want to win a Super Bowl and compete for a Super Bowl, Omar Khan said that at the NFL Combine, with all due respect to Mason Rudolph, he ain't winning the Super Bowl. He could maybe get this team to 9-10 wins, and for a franchise and for a fan base here, I mean, I love my fellow Yinzers, man, but we complain about, the standard being the standard at 9-10 wins. With Mason Rudolph, your ceiling is 9-10 wins and a loss in the playoffs. I think the ceiling is a little bit higher with Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's why the Steelers are still pursuing him. If you guys want to donate to the channel, we are doing a Steelers jersey raffle whenever Aaron Rodgers signs with a team. So if he decides to retire, if he decides to go to the Vikings, if he decides to go to the Giants, doesn't matter. If he decides to go to the Steelers, we will be going live whenever Aaron Rodgers makes a decision. It could be this weekend when Coop and I are on our days off.
It probably will be.
It probably will be. It could be later tonight. It could be whatever. Whenever the news breaks, we will go live and we will be giving away either an Aaron Rodgers jersey if he goes to the Steelers, or we will be giving away a Steelers jersey of the winner's choosing on that live stream. So if you guys want to get in on that raffle before that stream eventually comes, you can put in a $20 donation today via Super Chat to get yourself one raffle ticket. And if you want to double your raffle tickets and get 2 raffle tickets, you can send in $20 to Venmo at Jack-Sperry, # Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. The reason why we give you guys more raffle tickets if you Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal is because we get to keep more of the proceeds. So if you're going to be helping us out, we're going to help you guys out, and you're going to get more raffle tickets. Because Super Chat, guys, YouTube takes 30% of every single Super Chat that you guys send in. And then Apple takes another 10%. So we only get 60% of the money that you end up Super Chatting. So we get to keep more of the proceeds when you Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. So you get the extra raffle ticket if you use Venmo at Jack-Sperry, # Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. All right, so let's review here some of the moves that the Pittsburgh Steelers have made to this point in NFL free agency. The big move was that they traded for DK Metcalf before they ended up locking up their quarterback. They gave up 2nd and 7th round pick to Seattle. Seattle sent their 6th round pick back to us, so the Steelers have a 6th and a 7th round pick instead of 2 7ths at this point. They also gave Metcalf a 5-year, $150 million contract.
Officially signed
yesterday. He just got engaged too. He has his new fiance, so he's got a new life here in Pittsburgh, and it's a lot of good stuff happening for DK Metcalf here at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jaylen Warren, the Steelers brought him back on the 2nd round pick tender. He was a restricted free agent this year, so they are bringing him back at 1 year, $5.346 million. He is currently the number one running back option for the Steelers, but I do think the Steelers are probably going to be investing in a running back in the NFL draft this year to play alongside him. Then at a great value, Big Play Slay is officially a Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
Signed his contract yesterday, just $10 million on a 1-year deal that's fully guaranteed. I mean, some of his counterparts, guys like Carlton Davis, DJ Reed, Charvarius Ward, they signed for like $20 million per season. You get Darius Slay, somebody that had arguably even better film than those guys, in my opinion, last year with the Eagles. He was an awesome player for that Eagles defense. You get him for half the money. So I think that is a really great signing for Omar Khan. Malik Harrison is a special teams contributor and a rotational inside linebacker that they signed to a 2-year, $10 million deal. They brought in a really good number 3 running back option in Kenneth Gainwell, Kenny G, on a 1-year deal. Brandon Echols is also a really good kind of depth piece at the cornerback position. Of course, they signed Mason Rudolph to a 2-year, $8 million contract. So that's a backup level contract. And that, I think the money tells you exactly how the Steelers feel about Rudolph at this point. I think they see him as a backup to either Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Hopefully the Steelers can bring back one of those two guys, or bring in one of those guys at quarterback. Then Scotty Miller also signed yesterday, 1-year deal. And then also they brought in Ben Skoranek, a good signing for me. I think that Skoranek is awesome as a blocker. I think he is awesome as a special teams contributor. And I was very, very excited to see him back with the team. They also re-signed backup center Ryan McCollum. So those are all the moves that the Steelers have made so far. I also want to thank you guys because we just passed 78,000 subscribers here on Steelers Talk. So thank you guys so much for helping us get over 78K here on Steelers Talk. We are now the largest individually run Steelers news channel anywhere on YouTube. That is all thanks to you guys. There's a lot of Steelers YouTube channels out there, so the fact that we're number 1 is a big testament to your guys' support. Thank you guys so much for making this channel what it has become over the last 3 seasons. We wouldn't be here without you guys. So let's have some fun here. I think we got some more super chats, did we? Or did we not?
No more. We're all caught up.
We're all caught up. We did get a Cash App, though.
Cool.
So I will send you our first Cash App of the day. And we'll get this party started as McAfee just got started.
Look at what he's wearing.
I don't know. Somebody's wearing an Oscar the Grouch kind of colored robe.
By the way, did you see the DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons beef on Twitter?
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons going back and forth. Whose side are you taking on that? I'm
on Tanks.
I'm kind of on DeMarcus Lawrence's side.
I am.
You know, the Dallas Cowboys are a joke.
They're an absolute joke.
They're a joke of an organization. Jerry Jones doesn't know what he's doing. You know, he's a fan running a team. He's not a professional. You know, it's an absolute joke. And, you know, DeMarcus Lawrence is like, I love Dallas. It's my home. But, like, I'm not winning. I'm not going to go win there.
And he's not wrong.
And he's 100% correct. Then Micah called him out, and he was like, dude, I told the truth. You can be mad about me telling the truth all you want. I'm telling the truth, bro. And it's, you know, I think that Micah's having a tough time coming to grips with the fact that the Cowboys probably aren't going to be a winning football team moving forward. Got another Cash App here.
Shout out to Gino Macon for the first one.
Shout out to Gino Macon. He did not send a message with that, but Gino,
you're in the raffle, brother.
You are in the raffle, man. 2 tickets for you. Appreciate you.
This is a good question from Lawrence. He says, what happened with the Kyle Juszczyk visit?
Yeah, so Kyle Juszczyk, that's a good question. He visited yesterday, and he and his wife were in the building, and they were touring the facility. No, did not end up signing the contract. So I don't know if he has other visits planned. I don't know if the contract figure wasn't good enough for him. I don't know if his medical situation didn't check out. But he did leave the facility yesterday without a deal. And we'll see if he ends up signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it would be a great addition.
I do too.
I really do. I think that he, Artie Smith, he wants to kind of run lots of heavy personnel, lots of multiple tight end, multiple running back sets. He dabbled in it last year with Connor Hayward at fullback, but it didn't really go great, so they kind of went away from that. But I think Artie Smith, especially if you can get a guy of the caliber of Kyle Juszczyk, who, by the way, I still think had a pretty darn good season last year. I think he could have a nice little role here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The contract figure that I heard the Steelers were going to offer him was 2 years, $10 million. I figured that would be something that would appeal to a fullback. $5 million is quite a bit.
Absolutely.
For a fullback. So I don't know if money is the issue. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if Juszczyk and his wife just want to take a day to think about it. But at this point, he has not been signed to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But hopefully we can talk about that today. Hopefully that's the breaking news cut
that would be nice.
That we get to discuss today. Speaking of former 49er running backs, I was thinking about this the other day. If Christian McCaffrey is made available by the San Francisco 49ers, is that a move that the Steelers should pursue? Now, we still don't know if that's even something John Lynch would even entertain, but if it cost a third, fourth round pick, is that something the Steelers would want to do? Because they want to run this offense similar to how the Ravens run their offense, similar to how the Eagles run their offense, where it's a run-first kind of unit. And, you could take a risk on somebody that's an unproven product in a running back in the draft, or you could maybe take a little bit of a risk trading a mid-round pick for Christian McCaffrey, who's more of an established player. He is older. Injury prone, but it would be a little bit there's risk involved in both sides there. But if it cost a fourth-round pick for Christian McCaffrey, I'd be in, but I'm not sure if I would go as high as a third-round pick.
I don't know if I would either, yeah. I mean, I think he's a really good player, but I'd rather just take my running back in day one.
Because, if you trade your third-round pick, you have a first-round pick, and then you have no picks until day 3.
Yep.
So it's you have no day 2 picks if you trade your third-round pick. So, personally, I think I would rather go in the direction of the draft than going out and getting Christian McCaffrey. That is, if the 49ers make him available. But I think the Steelers have kind of made the quote-unquote big moves that they want to make so far in free agency. And now, they might pepper in a Kyle Juszczyk. They might pepper in, maybe they bring back Armin Watts this year, who's still available in free agency. Maybe they bring in an Alan Lazard if Aaron Rodgers ends up signing here. But, if you're expecting Cooper Kupp, if you're expecting, a big signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, now that we're in day 5 of NFL free agency coverage, I don't know if it's coming. I think the biggest signing they could still make is Mike Hilton.
Maybe.
Or Calais Campbell. Those are the 2 bigger names that we could potentially be looking out for today. But especially without the quarterback here, I don't know if any of these guys are going to decide to come to Pittsburgh without the quarterback situation figured out.
Shout out to Michael Italy with the $5 Venmo. Appreciate you waiting.
Appreciate you, Michael. He says, for love the show, Rodgers or not, still go draft a quarterback. I don't disagree with that at all.
I don't hate that either.
I don't disagree with that at all, Michael, especially if you can get a guy that you really like. If you really like Jackson Dart or if you really like Tyler Shuck, I don't know if I draft him in the first round, but if you trade down and get an additional day 2 pick and then you use that day 2 pick on a quarterback, I think that's something that I would be okay with. But I think if you get Rodgers, you're probably taking a quarterback in the first round next year. I think that might be the play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what the timing looks like in terms of when they draft a quarterback for sure. We just got another Venmo that I'll send your way.
Shout out Father Dismas with the 5.
Shout out Father Dismas.
And I absolutely agree with what Father Dismas is saying here.
He says, I hope they pay you guys overtime for that Aaron saga. We make salary, so we do not get paid overtime.
Like I said, I don't disagree with him.
But we get paid what we get paid. Yeah, you don't disagree with them, but we get paid what we get paid to be on call, essentially.
James,
so,
if you're watching, we'll talk.
From Spain, we will talk.
If you're watching from Madrid, we'll talk.
We'll talk. But yeah, it's been a long time, man. And what's actually crazy is I think my days have actually been a little bit shorter during this saga because we go live during the early portion of the day. Then if there's no breaking news for free agency by the time 6 o'clock Central Time comes around, we go home.
Pretty much. And there really hasn't been breaking news.
During a normal week, I'm at the office until at least 7.
Yeah.
So like I'm actually having more time at home than on a normal week.
I'm sure Cassie is happy about that.
Yeah, I think Cassie's okay with that. $20 from Anthony Rodriguez. $20 Venmo gets him into the raffle. He says, "Let's go Steelers, A-Rod." Good stuff right there, my friend. I'm hoping today's the day.
I don't think it is.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know.
I know if I was Aaron Rodgers, okay? Putting myself in Rodgers' shoes, all right? I know that if I had a public appearance to be somewhere tomorrow and I knew the press was going to be there and I knew every single question that I got was going to surround this scenario, I would want to have a decision made by then.
Well, you know the way he thinks is he probably thinks, oh, like, I love the awkwardness and the tension, and he'll just go in there without a decision.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's just eating all this attention up and he wants to continue to milk this. And if you're the Steelers, it seems like this team wants him enough where they are willing to let him milk this as long as he wants to. So, like, he's their guy. All right, whether you like it or not, like Mike Tomlin has made a decision that Aaron Rodgers is his guy that he wants to quarterback this football team next year, and they're willing to wait as long as it takes to allow him to come to his decision. And we can talk about the choices that he has at his disposal here, Coop. He's got the Steelers, of course, and in my opinion, the Steelers make by far the most sense for everything that he wants. What are the things that he wants? He wants a team that can commit to him for 2 seasons. Steelers can do that, especially because of where they're drafting this year, and especially where we're at in the free agency stuff. He wants somebody that can pay him a little bit of money. Steelers still have some cap space that they can use on him. And he wants somewhere that he can go and try to win a Super Bowl. All right, I keep hearing that the Steelers are a destination that has no chance to win a Super Bowl next year. They've got a great defense with legitimate, elite NFL defensive talent on there. T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, who was an All-Pro last year. They're bringing in Darius Slay. They have Patrick Queen, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Alex Highsmith. Keanu Benson, I think, is going to have a breakout season this year. So they got the defense. But then they also have a young and up-and-coming offensive line that they believe in. They're going to be drafting an up-and-coming running back. They've got a dynamic wide receiver duo. They have a really good tight end. All right, they have way more to offer than, say, the New York Giants, who at this point maybe can offer more money to Rodgers, but he has more money than God.
Yep.
All right, like I think as long as you give him a $20 to $25 million per season contract, he's going to be okay with that. So we'll see how much money actually matters to Rodgers here, but between those two teams, it makes way more sense to go to Pittsburgh. And Rodgers himself has talked about how much he loves the city of Pittsburgh. He has talked about how he loves the history, the culture, the people. He loves the city. And he's been publicly flirting with one of his favorite coaches in the NFL, Mike Tomlin, for many seasons at this point, including last year when he came to Acrisure Stadium. And, of course, Mike Tomlin does his classic timeout, and then they do their classic, tip of the cap to each other. Like, it just seems like this is a place that he would really want to go play. So it begs the question, why the fuck is it taking so long for him to make the decision?
Because he's Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, when we went live on Monday, Coop, we thought once Adam Schefter said, Steelers and Rodgers having discussions, and then Jerry Dulac puts it out. Steelers and Rodgers are closing in on a deal.
Of course, Dulac got it wrong.
5 days later.
Dulac deleted the tweet, of course, because he's a stiff.
He is a stiff. But, the fact that the Steelers allowed it to leak out first day of free agency before Sam Darnold signed tells me that Rodgers was their number one target in free agency from the very start. All right, I keep hearing people on national media saying, oh, they wanted Justin Fields, and then they went to Sam Darnold. No. Aaron Rodgers was their target. They only offered Justin Fields $15 million, guys. That's Daniel Jones money. All right, they knew the Jets were going to offer more.
Do you think Sam Darnold was ever even a discussion for the Steelers?
Yeah, I don't doubt that they put an offer in. I think they put in an offer at around $28 to $30 million, and they knew it wasn't going to make it happen. They knew that wasn't going to happen. All right? I think that they knew that. And the fact that they struck up these conversations with Rodgers on Monday and they let it leak to the media, I think that tells you right there that Rodgers was their guy from the beginning of this process, and they have now put all of their eggs into his basket. And if he decides to go to the Minnesota Vikings, if he decides to go to the New York Giants, if he decides to pull the rug out from under him and retire after telling the New York Jets he wants to play this year, I mean, they're screwed.
Can you imagine that if he retires?
No.
I can't either.
At this point, I think it's a 1% chance or lower that he retires. I think he plays football in 2025. And, let's talk about the other possibility here, Coop, which is that he could go to the Minnesota Vikings. Diana Rossini reported earlier today that the Vikings are still, quote-unquote, seriously considering throwing their hat in the ring for Aaron Rodgers. Now, they haven't yet. Apparently, they have not submitted an offer to Rodgers. Apparently, they're still discussing it. So, is it possible that Rodgers wants to wait to make a final decision, and he's waiting on Minnesota to give him a final answer?
Could be. Could be. Look, I think Minnesota would be a great situation for Rodgers.
Well, I agree, but I don't know if they're going to give him the 2-year deal he wants. That's the thing.
Maybe not.
Like, if Rodgers wants to go to Minnesota, it sounds like it'll be a 1-year kind of deal. And according to Florio, according to a lot of the different people that are surrounded by, with Rodgers' thinking, he wants to play 2 more seasons. And he wants to get a 2-year contract. I don't think Minnesota, who just drafted a quarterback in the top 10 last year, and they believe in J.J. McCarthy, is willing to sit him another 2 years for Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they're going to be willing to do that. But is Rodgers willing to take a 1-year contract with Minnesota if he feels like that's the best situation to win a Super Bowl? Maybe. I don't
think he will.
Nobody knows the answers to these questions, and that's the thing.
Where are you, Aaron?
It's like, where is he? Like, he's obviously in his beach house in Malibu, just sitting there thinking about these things. And it's like, well, what is there to think about? You've had 4 days to think about it. Like, what's the holdup here?
Maybe he took some more ayahuasca and had to, go deeper into his thoughts.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is the guy, and this is what we talked about yesterday. This is the guy that went on a 4-day darkness retreat the last time he made a big decision like this. So maybe he's replicating that same process in Malibu at his beach house instead of at a darkness retreat. I don't know. All right, I don't have the answers for you guys. All I know is that a decision has not been made 5 days in. The Steelers are still waiting on a response, and they seem like they like Aaron Rodgers enough where they're willing to wait for that response.
What a joke.
And by the way, Russell Wilson visits the New York Giants this afternoon. And if he signs with the Giants, that really puts the pressure on Rodgers choosing the Steelers then. It takes away one of the possibilities for Rodgers, because if they sign Russ, Rodgers is off the table for the New York Giants. But then it becomes, a battle between the Steelers and the Vikings. And then if Rodgers chooses Minnesota, you're stuck with Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback next year. And as we discussed, as much as I appreciate Mason and as much as I like this signing as a backup, he would be a bottom 5 starting quarterback in the league next year. And, that would pretty much kill any chances you have at winning the division. That would kill any chance you have of, maybe winning a Super Bowl, because everything could go right, Coop. This offensive line could develop. You could have a great run game. Your defense could be awesome. If it's Mason Rudolph versus Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game, if it's Mason Rudolph versus Josh Allen in a playoff game, I just don't think there's any shot that they win that game.
There's no shot.
And
what if it's Tyler Shuck?
He probably loses too. At least with Tyler Shuck, you have a long-term option.
But rookie QBs never win in the playoffs.
But rookie QBs never win in the postseason. So, if the Steelers' plan is to win now in the playoffs and try to compete for a Super Bowl, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, is there a more than good chance that he doesn't get the job done? Yeah. But does he give this team the best chance to do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, Coop, if they miss out on Rodgers, let's say he goes to Minnesota today. Let's say we get that announcement, and Russ doesn't sign with New York. I would bring back Russell Wilson. I still would. I've heard that the players are okay with Russell Wilson, but there are some coaches that took issue with some of the stuff that he leaked to the media this offseason. namely Arthur Smith.
Yep.
So if Russ comes back, I think it could still work. I don't think last year the issue was Russell Wilson. The issue was they brought in Russell Wilson to be a complementary piece to a good O-line with a good run game, with a good weapons group and elite defense. They didn't give him the weapons that he needed. They didn't give him the offensive line that he needed, and they didn't give him the run game that he needed to succeed. This year, they do have the chance to give him that. So if they do bring back Russell Wilson, I think this team's a playoff team, and I think they have a chance to potentially win a playoff game with Russell Wilson. All right?
Rappy's saying something here.
Rappy's saying something about Rodgers on McAfee here. He's talking about how he wants Rodgers.
He wants Rodgers to make a decision like we all do.
McAfee says that he assumes Rodgers is going to play again next season. Just a matter of where.
Oh, no.
Well, that he's not 100% sure he comes back to play. I think he comes back. Dude, there's no way he would be taking this long to make a decision if he was going to retire. Javon with a 10 says, OMG, Jack, you know I do not want Rodgers. I've been expressing this in your last two shows, but given the situation, I see Rodgers going to the Giants or Titans. Or Titans. The Titans have not even put their hat in the ring, brother. Says, hopefully Mason gets a start. I mean, I understand this fan base loves Mason for good reason. He's a Steelers legend. But listen, man, I'm telling you, Mason Rudolph being your starting quarterback is not the situation you want to be in. It's not a good situation if that ends up being the case. And that's coming from somebody that loves Mason Rudolph as a Steelers legend, all right? I'm just telling you, you do not want him as your starting quarterback heading into a year where you're trying to win a Super Bowl. That's just my take. All right, so let's have a word from our sponsor here at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. The time for spring cleaning has come, and to be completely honest with you guys, I love this time of year because it allows me to reorganize. It allows me to kind of put my house in order and get rid of some of the stuff that I don't really use and need to, kind of get out of the way. But I'm also ready to get rid of my old deodorant. I just started using Mando Whole Body Deodorant, and it's been an absolute game changer. I've been using their body wash for a long time. Now I've switched to their deodorant, and it's absolutely fantastic. From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Mando is safe to use anywhere on your body and is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Also, Mando's entire line of products are baking soda-free, paraben-free, and you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash, and their deodorant wipes are also very highly recommended as well. Plus, you get free shipping. Here is the sample that you would get in the mini body wash if you get the starter pack here, guys. And I love the bourbon leather scent. I got a big bottle of this at home. I've been using it for months, ever since we started partnering with Mando. And I love the bourbon leather scent, guys, because it's masculine and it keeps me smelling fresh all day long. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. $20, James, appreciate you. You're in the raffle. Says no way he's wearing number 12 if he signs with us. I agree. I think he's wearing number 8. I don't think that he would want to wear number 12, honestly.
He's going to disrespect Kenny Pickett like that?
Yeah.
Doesn't Corliss technically wear number 8?
Yeah, but I mean,
he'll
be giving it up if Rodgers comes here. Right? All of like a lot of the major like jersey swaps have him wearing number 12. But with Terry Bradshaw being number 12 here in Steelers Nation, I really doubt they give him that number.
What if Raji was like, if you don't give me number 1, I'm not coming here?
Well, I think that would actually be the thing that would open Art Rooney up at this point. So I don't think he'd want number 1. I think he'd want number 8, and I think they'd give it to him. But yeah, James, I agree. I don't think they're going to give him number 12. If he comes here, I think it'd be more along the lines of number 8 if he becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler. So we shall see, my friends. We shall see if today is the day. I'm hoping today is the day, just so we know what the next steps are. If Rodgers decides to go to the Vikings, if he decides to go to the Giants, if he decides to go to retirement, Steelers can move forward with their plan B, which is, in my opinion, at this point, with Russell Wilson still available, I would go back to Russell Wilson. I think with his chemistry, with his connection that he showed last year with George Pickens, along with the connection we already know he has with DK Metcalf, he can still sling that thing. He still has his arm talent. He's a limited quarterback at this point in his career. He's not the best post-snap processor past his first read. He's not the best playmaker out of structure, but he is somebody that can, on his first read, throw that deep ball up to the deep threats that the Steelers have on this offense. And if the Steelers can develop this run game, they pick the right running back and they develop the offensive line in the correct way, this team could still be very good, and this offense could be still very effective with Russell Wilson at quarterback. And yes, I do think Russ is better than Mason Rudolph at this point. So the way that I would rank these things, I would go with Rodgers number 1, I would go with Russ number 2, and then if you can't get Russ, I wouldn't go to Flacco, I wouldn't go to Jameis Winston. Those guys throw too many interceptions for Mike Tomlin's liking. I legitimately think Mason Rudolph is the fallback option here. And then if you have Mason, that means you have to find your quarterback.
You're saying if we don't get Russ as well.
Yeah, if you don't get Russ as well. If you miss out on Rodgers, and then if Russ signs elsewhere, then Rudolph becomes the veteran option. And then if Rudolph's the veteran option, then you look towards the NFL draft, and you probably take a quarterback at number 21. And would you be reaching on a quarterback at 21? Yes. All right, Shadur Sanders is probably going to be gone by pick 21. So you'd be picking between Jackson Dart, who I have a round 3 grade on, or you'd be picking Tyler Shuck, who I have a round 2 grade on. But I think if you're going to be making the case to take a quarterback in round 1, specifically for the Steelers, especially if you're going to plan on starting them really soon, I would take Tyler Shuck over Jackson Dart, personally. Dart has a lot of issues on film that he's going to have to clean up when he gets to the league. And for a team that has a win-now mindset in the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think Tyler Shuck has the much more pro-ready film compared to Dart. He's got an A- arm, can throw with multiple arm angles, really clean, repeatable throwing mechanics, which leads to really high-end accuracy, in my opinion. Really good blitz recognition. I really like Tyler Shuck as a prospect, guys. So if it's Mason Rudolph as the veteran option, I would seriously consider trading down from 21 if I'm the Steelers, and then taking Tyler Shuck to compete with Mason Rudolph in camp. That would be my plan if you don't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson.
Oh, we got this one from Javon.
Javon, another 10, so that's 20, so that means he's in on the raffle. It says, if Rodgers really wants a chance at the Super Bowl, Minnesota is the better option, honestly, in my opinion. I agree, Javon. The question is, does Minnesota want him? The question is Minnesota going to throw their hat in the ring?
It sounds like they're in talks, but no offer has been made.
Yeah, so according to the reports from Rossini and Albert Breer, the Minnesota Vikings are talking about maybe throwing their hat in the ring for him, but they have not submitted an offer to Rodgers, which might be the holdup. It might be Rodgers is waiting on Minnesota to give him a final answer. So maybe it's not Rodgers that's drawing this thing out. Maybe it's the Minnesota Vikings and Rodgers is getting all the shit for it.
Could be.
It's very possible that that's the case, that Minnesota has not made up their mind.
Minnesota!
But I agree with you, Javon. If you want to go win a Super Bowl, Minnesota is a better option than Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh still has a very big question mark on the offensive line. They still have a question mark at running back. All those different things. I do think the Steelers are clearly better than the New York Giants as a Super Bowl option, but let's face it, Minnesota has Kevin O'Connell, one of the best offensive play callers in football. They have Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in all of football. Jordan Addison, one of the best number 2 receivers in all of football. They've got an awesome defense led by Brian Flores, and they just added Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. So, the Minnesota Vikings, they're going in and they're trying to win a Super Bowl. So the question that Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah have to answer is, does Aaron Rodgers give them a better chance to win than J.J. McCarthy?
That's what they have to ask themselves. And I think the answer is yes.
I know, because you don't like McCarthy.
Well, to win next season, I think it's Rodgers, and it's not even close. But long term, of course, it's McCarthy.
But if Rodgers is looking for a 2-year deal, that's not something I think Minnesota is willing to do. I think Minnesota would only be interested if it's a really cheap contract and if it's a 1-year deal. And with Pittsburgh would be willing to give him a 2-year deal. They'd be willing to make a 2-year commitment to Aaron Rodgers. They'd be willing to give him, I think, $20 to $25 million per season to come here. All right, so I think he'd have to take less money and less years to go to Minnesota, and I'm not sure if he wants to do that, but that's what he'll probably need to do if he wants to, capitalize on that opportunity. So we'll see, how this Minnesota situation pans out. And right now, Aaron Rodgers is taking a lot of shit for, taking this long on a decision, but it might be Minnesota that's holding up the situation because Rodgers might want a final decision from them before he officially announces going to the Steelers.
I don't hate that theory.
And, it at least makes sense, right? It makes sense because Minnesota makes more sense for him than the Steelers. Apparently, Minnesota has not made a final decision on him. So it makes sense to me that Rodgers would wait until he gets a final decision from Minnesota. Ben Wright, $2. If Russ and Aaron Rodgers don't come, could we ask for Kirk? It's possible. I really don't want them to do it. I would rather have Mason Rudolph than Kirk Cousins.
If Kirk gets cut, I'd be interested. I'm not trading for him.
Dude, I don't even know if I'm signing him at the vet minimum. Because at least with Russell Wilson at the vet minimum, he still had his arm talent.
Kirk does not.
Yeah. Kirk's arm is gone. It's gone. And I think that I would rather go with Mason Rudolph as the bridge quarterback next year and draft a rookie this year than go with Kirk Cousins. I honestly would. That's how low I am on Kirk Cousins at this point. Because the final sign, the final straw, the final nail in the coffin for an aging quarterback, guys, is when he loses his arm strength. Aaron Rodgers hasn't lost his arm strength. Russell Wilson has not lost his arm strength. So they still have some hope. Kirk Cousins, it's gone, all right? He threw 11 interceptions in the final month of his career before he got benched for a rookie quarterback last year in Atlanta, and he played in a dome. He played in warm weather Atlanta. How is he going to throw in the AFC North where he has to play in Pittsburgh 8 times a year? He has to play in Cleveland. He has to play in Baltimore. He has to play in Cincinnati. A lot of the good teams in the AFC right now, Buffalo and Kansas City, they play in the cold too in the playoffs. Even if Kirk Cousins succeeds here, I just don't think you have any shot.
Shady, would you rather take Kyler Murray or Kirk?
What's that?
Would you rather take Kyler Murray or Kirk from Shady?
Would you rather take Murray or Kirk? Kyler Murray. But here's the thing, man.
I wouldn't trade for him.
I've been saying this the last several days. Kyler Murray's not a legit option because the Cardinals aren't moving off of him. Why do people think he's a legit trade option? I don't get it. Why do people keep bringing up Kyler Murray? Why do people keep bringing up Trevor Lawrence? Why do people why does people keep bringing up Justin Herbert? These things just aren't happening. Yeah, exactly.
Go out of here, intern Sam.
So, when it comes to the Steelers, they already have their fallback option in-house. They've got him locked up. All right, so they can let Rodgers take his time on this decision. All right, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if he signs, 2 weeks after free agency or on the first day of free agency. You're still getting the quarterback. All right, so as long as the Steelers still get Aaron Rodgers, I still feel pretty good about it. But
so
he still needs to sign.
We have a bit of an update here.
We have an update.
Sources tell Giants now host Marshall Green. The Giants are alive for Rodgers, but we really don't know how it ends.
Okay. So that was a direct message, he said?
That is correct.
Okay.
I will not divulge his sources.
So he said that Giants are still alive for Aaron Rodgers.
But we don't know how it ends. I
mean, I don't know why he'd go to the Giants. I really don't. They have one bona fide offensive weapon on that team. Their offensive line stinks. Their defense has been bad the last several seasons. I know they added a couple defensive pieces, but like for him to go there, like if you what you really want is to win a Super Bowl, that you're not winning one there. The only reason why he'd go there is they're offering him like $40 million over 2 years to go there. Like that's the only reason why. Jack, do you take Shuck or a QB farther down the draft and wait till next year if there are better options next year?
You're asking the wrong person. The biggest Tyler Shuck fan on earth is right in front of you.
I don't know about that. Greg Cosell has him ranked as the second best quarterback in this class.
So do you.
No, I don't. I have him ranked third. Overall, for the Steelers, I have him ranked 2.
If you were the GM of another team, not the Steelers, and it was Tyler Shuck or Shedeur Sanders, you're telling me you would take Shedeur Sanders?
Depending on the team, but for most teams, yes.
If it was the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen's not there.
Well, that's just not realistic.
Josh Allen is dead.
Once again, cold weather climate, I would go with Shuck.
If it's the Miami Dolphins.
Shedeur Sanders.
Okay. All right.
Shedeur Sanders.
Fair enough.
So here's my answer, Gary. I would take Shuck earlier in the draft than wait for further down the line because, I think Shuck has a legit chance to be a starter in this league. Now, a lot of people may disagree with that, but I think his tape is really good from Louisville last year. A lot of people that watch film, Louis Riddick, Greg Cosell, Todd McShay, agree with me on that. And I think that he's the most pro-ready quarterback in this class. So if you're looking for somebody to play and be a good starter relatively quickly, I think Shuck is a much better option than waiting till round 4 to draft Jalen Milroe or Will Howard or Kyle McCord, guys that I don't think are ready to play. And they need some development. Or even Jackson Dart for that matter. Jackson Dart, in my opinion, is not ready to play right away.
Speaking of Prince Star.
Prince Star, $2. So what about Jackson Dart? The thing about Dart is that I think he needs to have at least 2 or 3 years to develop into the quarterback that he could be. Because he played in a very college-esque offense, lots of RPOs, lots of screens, lots of manufactured, easy reads and throws, and kind of generated completions. Lots of one-read quarterbacking at Ole Miss. Lots of one read. And Lane Kiffin is a really good college coach. He schemed up a lot of stuff for him, wide open on his first read. All right, and then after that, he's not the best at getting to 2, 3, 4. And he's going to have to develop that. I think his footwork can get really sloppy. That's going to have to be fixed in the league. I think he actually doesn't have the cleanest release in the world. I have a round 3 grade on Jackson Dart. If the Steelers take him in round 1, I think that would be, honestly, a similar type of reach to Kenny Pickett.
Oh, yikes.
Tyler Shuck, he's older and he has an injury history, but at least I think he has better film. And I think that he would have a chance to be a decent starter, even at his age 26 season, which would be this year. So that's why I would prefer Tyler Shuck if they do draft a quarterback this year. But it's not a good quarterback class, right? So, that's why there's so much riding on the Steelers landing Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson for me, because if you don't get either one of those guys, you're forced to take a quarterback in a bad quarterback class. And that's not the route that I would prefer to go. But that's what I'll do. That's what I'm thinking. For example, Daniel Jeremiah has compared Jackson Dart to Jalen Hurts when he was coming out of Oklahoma. And I think that's a good comparison because Jalen Hurts was not a perfect quarterback coming out of Oklahoma. It took him 3 years to develop into what he needed to become. He had 2 years of struggles, followed by that third year where they finally put a great surrounding cast around him, and they went to a Super Bowl, and he was an MVP candidate. Jackson Dart, you're hoping he can take a similar career path to Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's pro-ready. I don't think, if the Steelers throw him in year 1, he'll have success. That's my personal opinion. You can disagree with it if you want, but that's my read of his film. That's where I'm at. We just passed over 78,100 subscribers. Thank you to everybody that's clicked that subscribe button so far today. Keep sending in those super chats, those Venmos. Speaking of Venmos, we did get a new one. Okay, we got a couple more, I think. So I'll send them your way here, Coop.
Sounds good. Javon coming in with the 5. Javon says, so why not grab Dart and sit him behind a veteran quarterback?
Listen, man, I'm okay with Dart if it's in round 3. And I'm okay with Dart if you have Aaron Rodgers or if you have Russell Wilson as the veteran. The thing is, if you have somebody that can compete this year at your quarterback position, I think that's good. But if you have Mason Rudolph, who, at best would be like the 25th best quarterback in the league this year, if that's being generous. I don't think that's something that, I want, if I'm being honest with you. And this is somebody that's, I say Mason Rudolph's a Steelers legend because of what he did in 2023. But I also think that run that he had with that 3-game winning streak leading to a playoff berth has kind of, has made him into kind of a folk hero here in Pittsburgh. And, the proper context to that 3-game stretch was that he played the 31st and 30th best defenses in the National Football League. And then he played second stringers in Baltimore. And, I don't know if that's necessarily the sample size that tells me that he can be a top 15 level quarterback in this league with Pittsburgh. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I love Mason. I think that he's a great backup option for this team, especially if they bring in Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. But I think the ceiling with Rodgers or Russ is higher than what it is with Mason Rudolph. That's my personal opinion. And I would rather get one of those two guys. And if you're stuck with Mason as your veteran option, I would rather draft Tyler Shuck in the NFL draft. Lance Williams, $20. Says, Rodgers is coming to the Berg, and we are drafting Hampton first round.
I'm in.
This offense will explode. Is a Hampton jersey on the table for the drawing? Yes, it can be. It can be, if you want it to be. So Lance will put you down for an Omarion Hampton. Well, maybe not. Wait, yeah, we can do it. We can do an Omarion Hampton
if
Steelers
he gets
jersey.
drafted.
If he gets drafted. So Lance, we'll put you down for the raffle. 2 raffle entries for you. I will say this, though. I think that I would trust Mason Rudolph with this season more than I would have trusted Justin Fields.
Do you think Mason Rudolph is a Steeler?
Mason Rudolph is a Steeler.
I mean, is he a Steeler?
Yeah.
I think so, too.
I think he is. And I'm glad that he's here. I said it yesterday. You can go check my breaking news video yesterday when they signed Mason Rudolph. I think it's an awesome move as a fallback option and as a backup option if they can get Aaron Rodgers to come here or if they can get Russell Wilson to come back.
Shout out Chris Minton with the 20.
Oh, never mind. I think it was Chris that. Yeah, Chris was the one that asked about the. Chris was the one that asked about the jersey.
If Omarion gets
if Omarion
drafted.
comes here. Lance did not have a message.
Well, Lance, you're in the raffle.
Lance, you're in the raffle. So are you, Chris. Thanks for the $20 donations, guys. And, something that I think gets misconstrued with the Rodgers situation here, Coop, is that people say, we don't want a one-year solution. I don't think the Steelers view it as a one-year solution.
They view it as a 2.
I think they view him as a 2-year solution.
Yep.
And then, because they got 2 years to try and get Cam Hayward a ring before he retires. And, if the Steelers, felt like that they couldn't win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, I feel like the right thing to do would just to restart. Fire Tomlin, trade TJ Watt, let somebody else pay him $40 million, trade Cam Hayward away so that he can try to win a Super Bowl with a legit contender, all these different things, and then draft a new quarterback, or maybe just bring back Justin Fields. But that's not what the Steelers are doing. The Steelers are trying to win now. They think they can win a Super Bowl this year, and they legitimately think that. I think a lot of Steelers fans disagree with that, but the Steelers feel like Aaron Rodgers, the addition of him, puts them in contention for a Super Bowl next year. They really believe that, and they're willing to wait as long as it takes to get their guy. So, that's how they think of it, and I can see why they think that. He still has his arm strength. He gets the ball out quickly. He processes defenses at incredible speeds. And, he was in a terrible situation with the New York Jets last year. Not only did he have the worst offensive game planner in football in Nathaniel Hackett as his OC, but he also lost his head coach midseason. And, it was a terrible situation. So, when people say, oh, he had Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams and he was still terrible, it's like, yeah, but how many times were those guys schemed open for him? How many times did the offense put him in a position to get it to those guys consistently? As somebody that's watched every single play that Rodgers had last year on film with the Jets, I can tell you it's not a lot. And, Rodgers had a lot of really high-end throws. Smooty Booty, $2, says, to be frank, Fields couldn't even smoke shit defenses. The thing about Fields is that he actually played some pretty decent defenses last year. He played the Chargers. He played the Broncos. Cowboys defense wasn't terrible, I guess. But yeah, his performance was not good enough last year, Smooty Booty. That's why they ended up moving on and only offered him a 15-year per season contract. Javon says, how about a change of convo? Cooper Kupp, yes or no?
I'd take him, but it sounds like the Steelers aren't in.
Yeah, I'd take him. I think that he'd be a good wide receiver 3, but apparently he's asking for $13 to $15 million per season, and I think the Steelers don't want to do that because obviously they have a quarterback that they want to sign. And I don't know if they can afford to bring in Cooper Kupp. And, honestly, I think the Steelers are more than okay with their wide receiver room right now. I think they're good with DK Metcalf and George Pickens as a dynamic duo at wide receiver. I think they're cool with Calvin Austin III as their number 3 option. I think they're cool with Roman Wilson potentially taking the next step this year, maybe establishing himself as a number 3 option. I think they're cool with Pat Freiermuth as their tight end. I think that they're cool with this wide receiver group, especially because they want to be a run-first team. All right, so I don't know if they want to pay $13 to $15 million, who would be their number 3 receiver in this offense. So I'm going to say no. The reporting is saying that it's Saints, Seahawks, Cowboys right now that are in on Cooper Kupp, and it's looking like the Seattle Seahawks are the favorite at this point in time, Javon. $5 from Shady, or from Steelers Productions, says, who do you think is better at QB for the offense, Milroe or Dart, or should we wait until a different class? So here's the thing. I think you take dart throws in every class until you find one.
Why not?
That's
draft a quarterback a year.
That's my philosophy, all right? If you draft a quarterback this year and he's not good, there is nothing that says that if you have a top 5 pick next year that you can't take a better quarterback. All right, hell, the Arizona Cardinals took a first-round quarterback in Josh Rosen, had the first overall pick the next year, and took a better one in Kyler Murray. All right, there's no rule that says if the Steelers take a quarterback in 2025 that they can't take one in 2026, right? So I think that the Steelers should use a draft pick on a quarterback of some sort. The question is, what variety of quarterback? And I think that that's going to depend on which quarterback they get in free agency. If they get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson back in free agency this year, then you think about a guy like Jackson Dart in round 3 or Tyler Shuck in round 3. Or you can think about a guy like Jalen Milroe in round 4 or 5, because you got 2 veteran quarterbacks in here, and Milroe can sit for a couple of seasons. And he's a high upside option that you can get on day 3. So I think that it completely depends on what happens with the veteran quarterback market in free agency. Sounds good. The pizza has arrived here, folks. So Coop's going to go grab our pizza before the rest of the Sharks here at Chat Sports end up taking it. Shady602, $5 super chat. What's up, Shady? Says we're forgetting that Rudolph did to the Bengals a couple seasons ago. I don't understand the hate for Mason. I'm genuinely happy he's back. If you think I've been hating on Mason today, I've literally said multiple times I love him, and I think he's a Steelers legend. All that I've said about him is I think, based on his numbers and based on what he's done in his career, his body of work, he's at best. He'd be at best the bottom 10 starting quarterback in the league. And that's not a knock on Mason. I love him, all right? We have a song for him on this show, for Christ's sakes, all right? I'll never forget that 3-game run that they had to finish out the season. But the reality is the Cincinnati Bengals defense was dog shit that season, all right? And, Russell Wilson put up 40-plus points on that defense last year, and people say that he sucks and needs to be run out of town, right? So one good game that was a 30-plus point performance against the Bengals defense, which is absolutely terrible, is not enough for me to say that he is a franchise-level quarterback, Shady. With all due respect, we have to remember the 3 teams that he played during that stretch. He played a terrible Bengals defense, a terrible Seattle Seahawks defense that season, and then the second-string Ravens defense. All right, and he barely, I think, how many points did we score in that Ravens game? 13 points, something like that. And then we went to Buffalo and lost by double digits. And I think Mason is a good backup quarterback. All right, I'm not trying to shit on Mason Rudolph here and say that he's completely terrible. All right, but like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are clearly better quarterbacks at this point. Clearly, in my opinion, based on everything that I have seen. And, I'm happy that Mason's here. I would be happy to have him as a backup. But the idea that the Steelers should roll with him as their starting quarterback next year with Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson still on the table in free agency, I think it's silly. I think it's silly. And this channel is all about, civil disagreements, right? I think it's all about respectfully disagreeing. If you have a different take than me, that's perfectly fine. I welcome all types of different takes, and I understand why this fan base loves Mason Rudolph. Trust me, I love Mason Rudolph. I do. But, we have to have realistic expectations of what the Steelers would get out of him if they roll with him as their starting quarterback. And it's not something that I think Steelers fans would very much like. Like, if Steelers fans, this fan base complains all the time that we don't want 9-8 seasons, that we don't want 10-7 seasons, and then losing in the first round of the playoffs. To me, that's the ceiling for Mason Rudolph if they bring him back next year. With Aaron Rodgers, at least there's at least a glimmer of hope. At least there's a wish upon a star that he could have like a Brett Favre kind of comeback season because he still has the arm talent. Way better than Mason Rudolph's. Way better. He still has really good mental processing ability. He barely throws any interceptions. Like, he is kind of like the perfect fit for what the Steelers want from their starting quarterback right now. Somebody that's going to protect the football, somebody that can that can make high-level throws down the field, and somebody that can get the ball out quickly and not take too many sacks. I think Aaron Rodgers fits this offense and can elevate this offense past where Mason Rudolph could. So that's why I am still very much in the Aaron Rodgers camp. Let's see here. We do get another super Cashapp here. $5 super chat from Drake Johnson. What's up, Drake? Says, how many picks do you think it would take to trade up next year to get Archie Manning? I mean, we don't even know if Arch is coming out next year. I mean, with NAL and all this different stuff that's out there, he might decide to go back for another season. Yeah, it sounds like he wants to play 2 years for the Texas Longhorns. So, tanking for Arch is not something that is realistic because A, you don't know he's going to come out next year, and B, Mike Tomlin, that's just not in his DNA to tank. It's just not. And by the way, Tomlin's job is on the line this season. Like, he's got to win this year. He has to bare minimum make the playoffs again to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026.
Next year's a bad QB class too, so I think Arch might come out, but
yeah, we'll see. You got Nico potentially, you got Arch potentially,
Garrett
Nussmeier potentially.
There's someone we haven't heard of yet that'll be there, I'm sure.
Yes, that somebody will rise through the ranks, whatever. I don't know how many picks. Jake, I don't know the answer to this question, if I'm being honest with you. It's going to be a lot. Depending on where the Steelers start in the draft order next year, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It really is.
Lance Williams.
Lance Williams again with a 6. Appreciate you, Lance.
What did Lance have to say?
Nothing.
Nada?
Nada. Not that I can see anyway. Appreciate you, Lance. $6. Helping out the show. Real one. Got a couple more super chats to get to here. Oh, this pizza smells so good, man.
Take a bite, dude.
Uriah, $10, says, I don't think you need to say, in my opinion, when you compare Rudolph to Rodgers, Wilson. Any Steelers fan thinking Rudolph is better than them is delusional.
I mean, yes.
I mean,
don't disagree.
But here's the thing: like, there are like very influential people in Steelers media, and Steelers like radio specifically, that like are pushing Rudolph is better than Rodgers and Wilson, and the Steelers should start him next year.
Is Filippone pushing that?
Yes, Filipponi's pushing that. DK Sports is pushing that right now, because DK Sports reported that the Steelers loved Justin Fields and that they were for sure going to re-sign him. He was wrong on that report. And then Filippone, we all know how wrong he is on his reports.
On everything.
So, listen, man, Rodgers and Wilson are just clearly just this isn't even a disrespectful comment to Mason Rudolph. They're better quarterbacks than Mason Rudolph is at this point.
That's a fact.
They just are. I know Mark Madden was pushing Mason Rudolph as well. Like, I like Mason Rudolph as a guy, man. I'm glad that he's back. All right, I am. But, like, we have to have some realistic expectations on what he is as a quarterback. And, like, Rodgers and Wilson just raised the ceiling past a point of what this team can do with Rudolph. And I think that's just a fact here, guys. And if you don't get Rodgers or Wilson, I think you're drafting a rookie quarterback to compete with Rudolph. And, like, if Rudolph has to start the season as the bridge quarterback, that's perfectly fine. But I think eventually you're going to that rookie quarterback, especially if the team's not winning the way that you want them to be winning. Shady, $5. Oh, I definitely agree with you, Jack, 100%. I was referencing to some things I have heard about Mason being a terrible sign. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so you weren't talking about me with the Mason hate. Yeah, man, if you're hating on Mason Rudolph and you're saying that, like, bringing him in on a $4 million contract is a bad thing, like, I don't know. I think that is as ridiculous of a take as saying that Rudolph is better than Aaron Rodgers or that Rudolph is better than Russell Wilson. Okay? Like, $4 million for a good backup quarterback is a great price to pay. Great price. And, you know, he is somebody that this franchise trusts. He is somebody that does have a good deep ball. He is somebody that has already proven that in a pinch can win football games with this football team. He has chemistry with some of the guys in the wide receiver room already. Like, to say that this would be a bad signing as a fallback option and as a backup quarterback, I think is silly as well. So there's two sides of it. It's silly to say Mason Rudolph is the best option for the Steelers in a win-now season at the starting quarterback position. And it's also silly to say that it's a terrible idea to sign him to a $4 million per season contract as the backup. Both of those are silly ideas. $2, Nick but worse, says, can't wait to get Rudolph jersey out of the attic.
Hey, if you got a Justin Fields jersey last year, you can
put some
tape over it.
That's the other thing. He gets his number 2 back from Justin Fields. So, you know, I'm happy Rudy's back, man. I am. I don't want it to make it seem like that, like I'm this Mason Rudolph hater.
You hate Mason.
Yeah, I hate Mason because, you know, I don't want the guy that had like the 38th highest big-time throw percentage last year to be the starting quarterback of the Steelers.
You hate him.
I just hate him. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Got a couple more super chats rolling in here. By the way, oh, never mind. I'm gonna take a bite of pizza here, guys, if you don't mind.
That one's the vodka, and then the other one, I believe, is just the 4 cheese. Give us a rating.
I like to go star ratings. I will give it a 3.5 star rating.
Solid. Yeah.
Solid pizza. Not the best pizza I've ever had in the world, but it's definitely high quality ingredients. You can actually taste the tomato in the sauce. But probably not the best saying Rudolph is better is literal clickbait. I mean, like, the crazy thing is, though, the reason why so many people have this opinion is because a lot of Pittsburgh radio personalities are pushing it. And that's why you watch Steelers talk, guys, because
we give it to you straight.
I mean, Pittsburgh media has been saying for weeks that Justin Fields was the main target of the Steelers. They weren't even willing to pay him more than $15 million.
If you're not willing to pay him more than $15 million, you weren't that interested to begin with.
That's the truth. If the Steelers really wanted Justin Fields, they would have upped their price to 20.
1,000,000%.
And by the way, maybe if Justin Fields wanted to come back to Pittsburgh,
he would have lowered his.
You would have lowered his. You would have taken the deal.
Yep.
So And then the fact that Pittsburgh went after Rodgers immediately in free agency, all right? Like, the report of the day of free agency was not Sam Darnold. It was Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
So I think the Steelers put in an offer for Sam Darnold, but I don't think it exceeded $30 million per season. I think it was around $28 million per season. Maybe it got to 30, but it definitely didn't get past that. And the guy that they have had their eye on from the beginning of this process has been Aaron Rodgers. He was their number one choice, and they're still waiting on him, but they're willing to wait for him because Mike Tomlin believes in Aaron Rodgers. And a lot of people don't agree with that. People think he's washed. People think he's done. I based on what I've seen on his film, I disagree with that. I think he still has a chance to, have a bounce-back season and have a good year with the Pittsburgh Steelers specifically, but we'll see if he signs here, and we'll see if I'm right that he can have a bounce-back season. We'll see. I've been wrong before.
We got
another one from Brian.
This one.
Oh, Dark coming in, $2. Says, is Russ not more enticing than Aaron Rodgers now with DK? Well, just listen to the Steelers, all right? If they thought Russell Wilson was the better option,
he'd be on the team.
He'd be back. He'd be back. It's well known that Russell Wilson wants to come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the Steelers that do not want or don't prefer to bring him back.
By the way, Russ visiting the Giants today. He visited the Browns yesterday. No deal.
And if we get that notification today that Russ is signing with the Giants, that's going to make things very interesting with the Rodgers situation. So we'll see if Russ and the Giants come to some sort of deal. If I were the Giants, and the Giants are telling you right now they would rather have Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, they are.
So I would say the chances of Russ signing a deal with the Giants today are close to zero. Because I think the Giants will wait until the Rodgers decision as well. So, Russ can take as many visits as he wants with these teams. He's still the next guy in the pecking order, right? So,
he's still number 2.
And like I've said throughout this show, guys, and all throughout the week, I'd be okay with Russell Wilson coming back. I've been saying this all offseason. I'd be okay if Russell Wilson came back. I do not think that it was his fault for the collapse. I think the collapse came from a big-time collapse on defense. The offensive line got worse as the season went on. The run game got worse as the season went on. And then, of course, with the injury to George Pickens, the offense really got out of rhythm. So, and then when he did come back, they never found it again. So I think that Russ would be fine, especially because he has a great connection with George Pickens. We know he has a great connection with DK Metcalf. Like, Russell Wilson could do a lot worse than Russ.
A whole lot worse.
All right, but the reasons why I've been saying the Steelers want Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson at this point, and we know that's the case because they're waiting on Rodgers at this point, and they've been pursuing him since the first day of free agency, is because he brings all the things Russ brings to the table. A great deep ball. He's a Super Bowl champion, tons of playoff experience, takes care of the football, does all the stuff that Russ brings to the table. But he also adds better mental processing post-snap, and he gets the ball out faster than Russ does, so he would take less sacks. All right, so he brings all the positives of Russell Wilson and then builds on those positives, which is why that the ceiling with Aaron Rodgers this year, at least from the Steelers' perspective, is higher than it would be with Russell Wilson. So because of the connection with DK that you mentioned there, Dark, and because of the connection with George Pickens and the deep ball ability, I think Russ would be perfectly fine to come back here. I think that this team will make the playoffs, and they will have a chance to win a playoff game with Russell Wilson as their quarterback if he is back next year. Big Ben says, chances if the Steelers miss out on Rodgers and Russ, Khan works the phones again to overpay for other QBs that previously weren't available.
Possible, not probable.
Listen, if Rodgers goes to Minnesota, I would at least call Minnesota about J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah,
and I would offer them our first-round pick this year for J.J. McCarthy. Because at that point, I would take J.J. McCarthy. I would take J.J. McCarthy over any of the quarterbacks that you'd probably take at 21. So that's where I'm at. I think I would rather go with that option if Rodgers goes to Minnesota. Now, maybe Minnesota says no, and in fact, I think they probably say no, trading J.J. McCarthy, who they just drafted in the top 10 last year. But McCarthy, in theory, could work here in Pittsburgh. He's played in a run-heavy offense before. He's played under center. for a long time. He's got a bunch of great intangibles. He's got a good arm strength. He's got some athleticism to him. He'd bring the Cognalize goggles here because that's what he's using in Minnesota.
You're a big VR guy.
I'm a big VR guy, so like JJ McCarthy would be the guy that I would want to trade for if Aaron Rodgers goes to Minnesota. I just don't know if Minnesota would even entertain that. And then when it comes to guys like Joe Milton, when it comes to guys like Will Levis, when it comes to guys like Malik Willis, honestly, I think I'd rather draft Tyler Shuck than bring those guys in. Maybe I'd think about Joe Milton, but if your quarterback room consists of Mason Rudolph and Joe Milton for next season, I think you're in trouble, guys. I think you're in trouble. So, I don't know, man. If you miss out on Rodgers and Russ, this quarterback situation is going to go from, not great to, terrible. That's the reality. $5 from Justin.
Justin Jankowski.
Jankowski, my man, says if we don't get either QB, what do we do with all this cap? Is Purdy an option? No. They're keeping Purdy.
And also, I don't want to give Purdy a new deal. I'm not a huge Brock Purdy guy. I don't know if you are.
And honestly, the Steelers don't have that much cap. Apparently, they have like $35 million, something around there. Apparently, like according to Steelers Depot, that's the latest calculation that their team came up with, is that they have just over $30 million. So it's not like they have the money to pay somebody $50 or $60 million per season here in Pittsburgh. So we'll see what happens here. What will they do with all that extra cap? Honestly, they'll probably just keep it. Maybe they bring in Mike Hilton.
No, you can't. You got to spend it somewhere.
Maybe they bring in Mike Hilton. I'm trying to think of players that are still expensive on the open market right now. There's not many. And depending on how long this takes...
Bring back Des Bryant?
No, not bring back Des Bryant.
I hear Antonio Brown and Lev Bell are available. I'm with you, though. They better get Aaron. They better get Aaron.
That's what makes this situation so... nerve-wracking, is that if they don't get Rodgers, and if they don't get Russ, then a team that is trying to win now has pretty much no chance to win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And I'm not necessarily saying that the chances of the Steelers winning the Super Bowl with Rodgers or Russ is even that high. I'm just saying at least it's not zero.
Agreed.
At least there's a glimmer of hope that Aaron Rodgers could have a Brett Favre caliber season at 41 years old next year. There's a glimmer of hope that Russell Wilson, reunited with DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and a better offensive line and a better run game, could, finish what he started. I mean, at one point last year with Russell Wilson at quarterback this year, Steelers fans and this community was talking about this team as a legit Super Bowl contender before that 5-game collapse. I remember after the Cincinnati game where they scored 40-plus points, I put the Steelers 6th on my NFL power rankings the week after. And I got yelled at by Steelers fans for not putting them 1 or 2. That's how good this fan base was feeling about this team before the collapse. All right, so if you're telling me that with a better wide receiver group, with a better O-line group, with a better running back group, that Russell Wilson, especially if this defense turns it around next year, can't get this team back to that level of play under head coach Mike Tomlin, I'd say, I think you're misconstruing the possibilities of this football team. $5 from Fetty.
I'd much rather trade for Joe Milton than draft the QB this draft, unless a miracle happens and we somehow get Ward or Shadur, higher ceiling than Rudy.
I mean, listen, Joe Milton would be the guy I would consider because I think he actually showed some promise last year. He did. Now, he did it against backups, and he did it against preseason opponents, but his issue in college was accuracy and mental processing. I thought he showed some good improvements in both of those departments last year. And, if you can get him for a 5th-round pick this year, is that worth it? I don't know, man. It's not... Don't get me wrong, guys. Mason Rudolph and Joe Milton is not a good quarterback situation to be in. But, compared to some of the other options, I would personally take Tyler Shuck. I like Tyler Shuck a lot. I'd probably take him over Joe Milton, to be honest with you, Fetty. But I see where you're coming from for sure. Joe Milton did show some good things last year. $5, Gary Frank. My man says we need to start being very serious in public with Wilson or the pressure on Rodgers to shit off or get off the pot. Here's the thing, Gary. I don't think the Steelers want to put pressure on Rodgers.
They don't.
I think the Steelers specifically signed Mason Rudolph so that they could say, Aaron, we want you. We want you here to come win a Super Bowl with us here in Pittsburgh. Take all the time you need. That's what Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan are telling him right now. Take all the time you need. If you want to take a month to decide, all right, we're cool. We've got Mason Rudolph, who we like as a veteran option if you decide not to come here. But we still want you, and we're willing to wait as long as it takes to get you in our building. And by the way, I don't know if any team is going to sign Russell Wilson before Aaron Rodgers signs. So I think Russ, whether he wants this or not, whether Russ likes it or not, he's not signing with a team until Aaron Rodgers is signed.
Dane Jackson, back to the Bills. That's like the first signing we've had today.
Yeah. Got a PayPal here.
Sounds good.
There we go.
Two from Dark.
Two from Dark says, what contract does Aaron Rodgers get realistically, and what about Russ? So Russ is a bit more tricky because I think Russ would sign on the dotted line for like $20 million 1 year today. I think he would sign whatever contract that wasn't like, within reason, Russ would sign whatever contract Pittsburgh would put in front of him. With Aaron Rodgers, I think it's going to be somewhere in the range of $20 to $25 million per season over 2 seasons. And I do think it'll be 2 years. And that's where we're at right now. I think it'll be 2 years around 50 mil, with maybe 35 guaranteed, something around that range. We'll see what the actual number ends up being. Maybe it's a little bit more than that, but that's what I think the realistic number is. And then for Russ, what gets tricky with Russ, Coop, is that if you miss out on Rodgers, Russ has a lot of leverage in terms of what he can ask for money-wise. So he might make like $30 million on a 1-year deal if Rodgers goes and the Steelers have to go begging on their hands and knees for Russ to come back. So we'll see. Carter says Chase Claypool re-signing 1 year, $30 million.
You can do that to fill up some cap.
Yeah, exactly. You could fill up some cap with that move. Bring back Chase Claypool. Completely kidding.
By the way,
course.
I can't believe I don't remember if it was Penn State, but I know there was some college that is banning their players from doing TikTok dances.
That's hilarious.
I don't remember which.
So now they're talking about Rodgers on McAfee again. Let's listen in while I eat some pizza.
Have some za. So they're not saying anything new, basically. They're just talking about how people perceive Rodgers. Tone Diggs says Russ is not coming back.
I think he's still their backup option. I still think if they miss out on Rodgers, they will go back to Russ. So I disagree with Tone on that. So
interesting.
So McAfee says, so the picture of the paparazzi picture of Rodgers walking the beach, apparently that's one of the reasons why he has the house in Malibu, is that he walks the beach every night. He walks the Malibu beach every night, apparently. McAfee is saying that he's sending a lot of messages to Rodgers, trying to get him to respond, and he's getting nothing. McAfee just said that he doesn't even think Aaron Rodgers realizes that people are kind of shitting on him for taking so long.
Fetty Kruger with the 2. Says, no Russ, no Raj. Tannehill reunion with Artie?
No, that won't happen. He's been retired for 2 years, and he was cooked by the time he retired.
He was cooked.
That's not going to happen. Listen, man, the fallback option is Mason Rudolph. That's why they signed him, is because he is their fallback option. By the way, some kind of big news here. Jordan Schultz just reported the Eagles are now open to trade talks, including involving tight end Dallas Goedert and edge rusher Bryce Huff.
Bryce Huff, a solid player.
They're both good players. Yeah. I don't think the Steelers, in terms of the Steelers, I don't think they're interested in either of them. So AJ Hawk from the Pat McAfee show just said that he would be surprised if Aaron Rodgers retires. He says that you can't rule it out, but everything that he has kind of encountered from Aaron this offseason says that he will want to play. So we will see, guys. Justin, $2.
Let's do a read first.
All right, cool. Before we get to Justin Super Chat here, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. Once Coop has our graphics ready to go for Mando. Guys, this time of year, it's spring cleaning season, and I love this time of the year because I get to clean out all the different stuff that, kind of just have a fresh start to almost like a new year, where it's like if I have clothes I never wear anymore, I can get rid of them. If there's stuff, in the kitchen that's disorganized, I can reorganize the kitchen. I can just feel like my house is in order and all that stuff, and everything is in order in my life. I'm also really excited to get rid of my old deodorant. I just switched to Mando Whole Body Deodorant, and it's been an absolute game changer. I've been using their body wash for a while, guys, but their deodorant is also fantastic. And it comes from the founders of Lumi, and Mando's Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Mando is safe to use anywhere on your body and is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Also, Mando's entire line of products are baking soda-free, paraben-free, and you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash, or their deodorant wipes are also very highly recommended as well. Plus, you get free shipping. For me personally, guys, I have been using their body wash for a long time. You guys can get this smaller version of the Mando Whole Body Deodorant. This is the bourbon leather scent. And I got a big bottle of it at home. Again, I just switched over to the bourbon leather stick of deodorant as well, and it's absolutely fantastic. So if you guys want to try out Mando's products today, as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence with head to toe with Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. $2 super chat here from Justin. Says, just heard a rumor GP demanded trade to Dallas. It's not true. You heard wrong, Justin.
Not the case.
There's a lot of people that put out fake stuff out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, Justin, if you want to DM it to me on Twitter at Jack_Sperry, I can tell you whether it's coming from a decent source, but first of all, when teams demand a trade, usually they don't demand it to a specific team. So if you're seeing a specific destination, that's usually a telltale sign that it's not true. George Pickens, I've heard, wants to stay in Pittsburgh, and he's happy about the DK Metcalf trade, and he's ready to work with him. And he's ready to work with whoever the quarterback is this year. $20 PayPal here from Claudio Jerez.
Shout out Claudio.
Let's see what he had to say. Claudio. Do not see a message from Claudio from the PayPal. So, Claudio, you are in on the raffle. 2 raffle tickets for you, my friend, for the Steelers jersey. Whenever Aaron Rodgers eventually makes his decision, we'll be going live for that, and we'll be giving away a jersey. So $20 to get in on the raffle whenever we go live for that. $2 from Maito Gomez says, let's just roll with a rookie quarterback and Mason. No. That would be my third option, Maito. My personal number one option is Aaron Rodgers. I think that this team can still be very competitive with a Rodgers at quarterback. Same thing with Russell Wilson, which is why Russ is still my number 2 option. According to Ian Rappaport and others, the Steelers' fallback option, if Rodgers does not sign with them, is still Russell Wilson. So we'll see if that ends up being the case if Rodgers goes elsewhere, even though I still think the Steelers are the betting favorite for Rodgers. And then if they miss out on Rodgers and Russ, then I think that's the plan. And I think you draft a rookie quarterback this year, take a dart throw, see if you hit on somebody, and then Mason Rudolph is a perfectly fine veteran option that can keep this team competitive, although it might I think your ceiling is definitely limited with Mason at QB.
Your ceiling with Mason is 9 wins, I think. That's your ceiling.
Yeah, for a fan base that says we're sick and tired of 9-8 seasons, there's a lot of people clamoring for Mason Rudolph to be this team's starting quarterback next year. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We have breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a move. Kyle Juszczyk visited the Steelers yesterday. Still no deal. If the Steelers end up striking a deal with him, or with Mike Hilton, or with Calais Campbell, or with Cooper Kupp, or with any of the remaining bigger name free agents, we will have a breaking news video for you guys. Just got a Cashapp here from one of my favorite members of this community here.
All right.
Let's go.
My guy.
Coop's guy. Haven't heard from him in a little while.
Welcome back to the show, Nathan Glass.
Nathan Glass, $20, my man. Welcome back to the show. It's good to see your face, Nate. He says, "What's up, Jack and Coop? What's up, my man? It's good to see you." He says he will be signed. He says he will be signed today.
I wish the Steelers would say goodbye to Wallace.
Yeah, to Wallace. Yeah. Nate, I'm hoping so, man.
I need it today, man.
I really want that notification to come across my screen right now, but the more we're going, the longer this thing goes, the longer it feels like it's gonna go. Because like on Tuesday, it really seemed like Tuesday was gonna be the day, because Slick Rick comes out and says he's gonna be a Steeler, and then also on Tuesday, McAfee posted that thing with Rodgers talking about Pittsburgh, and it really seemed like Tuesday morning that was going to be the day Rodgers decided it was going to be Pittsburgh, and it just never came. And then Wednesday came, and we got nothing.
And then Thursday came,
and we got nothing. And now Friday is here, and we've got nothing. So, I don't know. I really don't know what to think. My best explanation, so here are my 2 theories. Number 1, this is the same guy that spent 4 days on a darkness retreat to decide the last time he made a big decision about his career.
This is true.
So he just wants to take the week to decide. I'd be shocked if we go past next Monday. If we are sitting here next Tuesday and Aaron Rodgers has still not made his decision, I will be shocked. I will be shocked if he has not decided by next Tuesday.
You'll be shocked.
I think the latest that he decides is next Monday. The latest.
All right.
That is the cap that I'm putting on this thing.
If he doesn't sign by Monday, are you willing to move on from him?
No. I'm just.
You'll wait it out.
I'll wait it out as long as it takes, because I think, at this point the Steelers are trying to win a Super Bowl. Rodgers is the quarterback that gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl at this point. You have your fallback option in Mason Rudolph in-house, so you might as well wait it out as long as it takes. You might as well let Rodgers come to his decision, and then, you move on after that. So there's at no point am I putting a hard line on Rodgers. If I'm Mike Tomlin, if I'm Omar Khan, I'm saying take all the time that you need.
Marsh said apparently a Giants reporter, there's a report out there the Giants offered Rodgers 2 for $90.
From who?
I know, that's what I'm trying to find.
Ask him from who? Because if the Giants offered him 2 for $90, that's $45 million a year. That's a lot of dough. And I don't think the Steelers have offered him that. I think at the most they've offered him $35 million per year. And that's like the most. Honestly, I think it could be more in the range of 30 if it's even that. So, like, if that report's true that the Giants have offered him $45 million a season to come play with the New York Football Giants, that is an astronomical number. That's more than Myles Garrett got.
All right, Marsh just sent it to me. It's from Steelers Wire, so we'll take a look here in 2 seconds.
It's from Steelers Wire.
It's a rumor. It's not a report. So that was a misspeak.
Because I know Florio, quote-unquote, gave the, quote-unquote, semi-educated guess that Rodgers would make 2 years, $90 million.
Maybe this is what that was. Let me just double-check it.
And I think Florio is way off. So if this is coming from Florio, it's bullshit, and I think that Marsh is in denial, and he's trying to grasp at straws here.
You think Marsh is in denial?
Because, like, sometimes you just gotta use your critical thinking skills, ladies and gentlemen. Like, when it came to Justin Fields, for example. Like, all the reports were saying the Steelers wanted Justin Fields back. All right, but when I thought about it, Justin had 6-game stretch. They could have made him the full-time starter over Russell Wilson. Mike Tomlin decided not to do that, placing Justin on the bench, and he rode with Russell Wilson the rest of the season, despite the offense really struggling down the stretch. And then he didn't get to see Justin Fields play again. So, like, the idea that the Steelers would be willing to turn to Justin Fields when he wasn't good enough for them last year, you just got to use critical thinking skills sometimes, guys.
So this might just be the Florio report, but this is what Marshall Green was talking about.
Okay.
Said, rumor has it the Giants have a 2-year, $90 million offer on the table. No specifics on what the Steelers have offered, but it's safe to assume that it's close to that, and the biggest differences have to go with guarantees. Pittsburgh's front office is notoriously stingy when it comes to guaranteed money.
So who's the author of that?
I'm not sure.
He just sent you that photo?
Yes.
Rumor has it. I don't know where that rumor is. But, I mean, if it's true and the Steelers end up paying $40 million a season or whatever it ends up being for Rodgers, I mean, the Steelers have a lot of faith in him if they're willing to pay him that much.
Andrew Longoria.
My man Andrew coming in with a 40. He says, "What's up, Jack and Coop? With the Steelers signing a running back already, should they sign another, or would you rather roll with a rookie? Also, what offer would you," and then it cuts off, "what offer would you make to Kyle Juszczyk, to be our fullback for next year?" I would love to get Kyle Juszczyk on a 2-year deal worth anything $10 million or less. Because the rumor I heard was that the Steelers were going to offer him 2 years, $10 million. So I wouldn't want to go more than that for a fullback, but I would be willing to do the 2 years, $10 million. So anything that's below that number, I'd be cool with. Juszczyk is getting older, but he's still one of, if not the best fullback in the game. And if the Steelers are really looking to, go heavy formation, if they're really looking to, really prioritize the run game this season, I think that, adding a Juszczyk, who is a great receiver as a fullback and is a great blocker, by the way, would be a great add. So that's the answer to the second part of your question, Andrew. For the first part of the question, I would rather roll with a rookie. And the reason for that is because, A, if you draft a rookie, they're a younger player than if you sign somebody at this point. And there's still some really good running backs available, Coop. You could get J.K. Dobbins when he stays healthy. He's pretty darn good. Nick Chubb. Second year off of his knee injury, maybe, just maybe, he could be good. There's some options out there still for the Steelers to consider at running back, but there's also a lot of options to consider in the draft. And those players are younger and, in my opinion, have more long-term future success ahead of them than J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins, at the very best, are Band-Aids. Jaylen Warren, to me, is a very high-end number 2, and he's not a true number 1. The Steelers want to run this offense in a similar vein to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Baltimore Ravens, and the other top running back rooms in the National Football League. San Francisco 49ers, when Christian McCaffrey's healthy. They want to have that star running back in there, right? Saquon Barkley for the Eagles, Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers, Derrick Henry for the Baltimore Ravens. They need to find their star in this group. And I think you're more likely to find your star in the draft than in free agency. This isn't last year, okay? Saquon Barkley is not available this year. Derrick Henry is not available this year. Josh Jacobs is not available this year. Right now, you're dealing with guys that are injury prone and are kind of older players that have lost their mojo. In the draft, you can get somebody that's younger, somebody that can be your star running back for the future, and I do think the Steelers will spend a relatively early draft pick on a running back. Will it be round 1? Who knows? Honestly, I think at this point they're gonna spend their first round pick on a defensive tackle. Certainly seems like that's the plan right now, especially because they haven't signed a DT yet. But in round 3, or if they trade down and they get an additional day 2 pick, you look at round 3, you could still maybe get Caleb Johnson. You could still maybe get Cam Scadabo. Like, there's still some really good options. You could maybe even get Quinshon Judkins on day 2. So there's a lot of options out there for the Pittsburgh Steelers to consider in the draft that have some very high upside, and I think that's the path they should go down. Black and Yellow Podcast, $2.79 Canadian, says, if we sign Russ or Aaron, who do you draft as a quarterback? So if you draft Aaron, I actually like the idea of waiting till round 5 to draft Jalen Milroe.
I like that too.
I kind of like the idea of Jalen Milroe on day 3, round 4, round 5.
Just let him sit 2 years.
Let him sit 2 years. Let him learn from Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterback minds to ever play the game. Mason Rudolph, has certainly, been in a role of a mentor before as well. When they drafted Kenny Pickett, it didn't work out for Pickett, but I think Mason is more than capable of helping that process out. And Jalen Milroe has a lot of upside. All right, like he's got a big arm. He is a dynamic rusher of the football. He's got great size, but he is a true one read and run quarterback at this point. He's not particularly good on that first read. He's got accuracy issues that he needs to fix. So I think he's a day 3 quarterback, and I think he needs to sit for at least a year, probably 2, before you even think about starting him. But, if you have a 2-year kind of plan with Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years before Cam Hayward retires, you still got to have an eye on the future. And Jalen Milroe could be that eye on the future. So, honestly, that's probably what I would do. I would also add, if you can get Tyler Shuck or if you can get Jackson Dart on round 3, I would pull the trigger on those guys then. But, I don't think they're going to be there in round 3. So, I would say the most realistic option, if you bring in Russ or Aaron, is to sign Jalen Milroe and let him sit 2 seasons. Rez, what's up, my man?
Our guy from Sweden.
Our man from Sweden, 129 SEK, says, I am crazy. Am I crazy for thinking A-Rod has a better chance at a Super Bowl with the Steelers? We have an elite defense, GP and DK. Muth in the middle with hopefully a good running back in the draft. Love from Sweden. Listen, man, when it comes to...
Can you say SEK again, please?
129 SEK. I don't know why I say it that way, but I just did. But no, Rez, you're not crazy for thinking that, especially when you're comparing him or comparing the Steelers situation to the Giants. Right? The Giants have one bona fide weapon.
Malik
Neighbors. Their number 2 receiver right now is Darius fucking Slayton. The Steelers' number 2 receiver is George Pickens. All right, so would you rather have DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and Pat Freiermuth? Not to mention you still have Calvin Austin, who's a pretty decent player, and Roman Wilson, who reminds me a lot of Randall Cobb, who, by the way, played great with Aaron Rodgers.
Or Malik Neighbors, who's great.
Or Malik Neighbors, who's awesome.
And Darius Slayton.
Who's their tight end? Theo Johnson? Like, This is an
Dane Bellinger.
Anybody that's saying that the offensive situation.
Chris Manhertz.
Yeah, Chris Manhertz. Like anybody that's claiming that the offensive situation, like Colin Cowherd made this case, by the way, that the offensive situation in New York is better than in Pittsburgh, they're out of their fucking mind.
That's a joke.
They're out of their mind.
That's a joke.
Like, Pittsburgh is going to draft a running back in the draft this year. They have made a serious investment in young offensive line talent over the last 2 seasons.
And by the way, they already have a good running back 2 and 3 in Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell.
And they already have a good defense.
Exactly.
And, here's the thing about the defense. Here's a good point about the defense that I want to share with you guys. Because it's become a trend here, Coop, that the defense gives up a ton of points in the playoffs. They're
exhausted.
They're exhausted. That's exactly the point. Because the offense is always bad. The offense is never on the field throughout the regular season. So the defense has to expel a ton of energy just to get the team to the playoffs. And then by the time they get to the postseason, the defense has been on the field for longer than any other unit in the league, pretty much. And they're just exhausted. And they have to play the best offenses in the league, and they just can't hold up. But if you can fix the offense in Pittsburgh, all right, if the offensive line develops, if you get the right running back, if this run game is legit, if you get the right quarterback, whether that's Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson in here, and they actually have some success here in Pittsburgh, then, that's going to keep the offense on the field for longer during games, which will keep the defense off the field longer, and they'll be fresher come the end of the season, and they can do their thing at the end of the year. So, if the Steelers can somehow figure out the offense here, which is still possible, by the way, this team can absolutely level up on both sides of the ball, not just on offense. So I think the pitch for Pittsburgh when it comes to Aaron Rodgers is a pretty good one. Is it as good as
I absolutely believe so too.
Is it as good as Minnesota's? I would say no. Minnesota's pitch is the best that any other team can offer at this point. But does Minnesota want to give him a 2-year deal? Do they want to pay him anything more than $10, $15 million per season? I think the answers to those questions are no. I think Minnesota is going to be moving to J.J. McCarthy next year. So, if it comes down to Steelers versus Giants, I'll say it again. I think that the answer is pretty clearly Pittsburgh Steelers. Tom Pelissero on NFL Network told Rich Eisen that he sees Aaron Rodgers playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers as the most likely scenario right now, but says it's a moving target overall.
So nothing new.
The expectation continues to be Pittsburgh Steelers. $2, Chris says, Jack and Coop, do you want Cup or no? Trade Pickens.
I would like Cup. I'm not trading Pickens.
So here's the thing. I would take Cup for less than $10 million. I'm not paying him $13 to $15.
You wouldn't give him $13 million?
No, he's not worth that anymore. He'd be your number 3 receiver. And when it comes to trading Pickens, here's the thing with Pickens. I think you have to get a really good draft pick for him for it to make sense. And I don't think it makes sense. With his off the field kind of antics, when it comes to effort issues, when it comes to being late for meetings, when it comes to all the stuff that comes along with George Pickens, just talent-wise, he's worth borderline first-round pick, second-round pick, really good player. But when you take into account all of the stuff that you have to add on to it, plus the fact that the team has to take on the risk of paying him a new contract, most likely if they trade for him, because he's on the last year of his rookie deal, that's going to drive down his trade value. So when it comes to a Pickens trade, I just don't think it's a good idea for this team. I would rather have George Pickens for one more season and let him walk for nothing than get a 5th-round pick for him this year. That's where I'm at. I would rather have DK and GP for a year than give up George Pickens for a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick. I need at least a good 3rd-round pick to feel good with letting go of George Pickens. Because you're going to have to use that pick on a player to replace him. And it's what are the chances that you're going to draft a player this year, Coop, that's better than George Pickens this season?
Slim to none.
Slim to none. So, if the value's not there for a George Pickens trade, I say keep him. I don't think the value will be there. So my answer to that question is most likely keep George Pickens.
Kareem Hunt back to the Chiefs. Oh,
man, we got some super chats rolling in here.
Flowing.
Dad Churban, $5. Says, what if the Steelers instead get their franchise QB in the 26th draft, which is in Pittsburgh, use money now to get smothered legit swing tackle?
I wish.
Trent Brown is still out there.
No, he re-signed, I thought.
Did he re-sign?
Yeah, I think he went somewhere. Or he re-signed.
Yeah, look that up for me quick. Because there's not a lot of tackle options out there. So, like...
Yeah, he re-signed with the Bengals.
He re-signed with the Bengals? Yeah. Shoot.
Oh, wait. Maybe not. Hang on. I thought he did.
I haven't seen or heard or anything from him so far.
Maybe he's still out there.
But Dad Churbin, let me know in the chat, who would you want to bring in at swing tackle? By the way, a swing tackle is not that expensive. A swing tackle is like $5 million or less.
You would have liked Cornelius Lucas, right?
Yeah, I would have loved Cornelius Lucas, but he signed with the Browns.
Yeah.
Like a swing tackle is only worth...
Yeah, Trent Brown's still out there.
It's like a $5 million contract or less. He's back with the Bengals?
No, he's still out there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I would bring in Trent Brown on a $5 million or less contract. That'd be a good... but you can still get Rodgers and bring in Trent Brown. It's not like Rodgers or a quarterback is going to prevent you from doing that. Steve Theisen, $20. Thank you, man. Says Jack Sperry as QB. What dollar amount would you command? Put the preach back in Rodgers. Pressure back on Rodgers. Should you announce live today?
You could throw some different arm slots.
Unless I get 50 mil, I'm walking. Unless I get 50 mil, I'm walking. You know what? I'll take the vet minimum. I'll take the one.
You'll take the 1.2. You'll be humble.
I'll be humble about it. I'll take the $1.2 million. To be the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. Appreciate you, Steve.
Do you think you have the mobility in the pocket?
I've got the size. I
definitely have the size.
I'm tall enough to see over the line. That's for damn sure. $2 from Chris says, "Would you franchise tag Pickens in 2026?" I would consider it.
That's actually a great question.
It's actually a great idea.
Well, it also depends on what you do with TJ.
Yeah, you got to answer the TJ Watt question, too.
If you don't extend TJ Watt and he's thought to be a free agent, you probably have to franchise tag him over GP.
Yeah, and I don't think we see a TJ extension until they get the quarterback, until Rodgers makes a decision. Just because the team needs to know how much they have this year, how much they have in future seasons available to give TJ. So we'll see what happens with TJ's contract. I don't know if I'd pay him 40, if I'm being honest. He's getting older.
I'm not giving him 40 mil.
I don't know if I'm giving him. I might give him 37. I don't know if I'm giving him 40. So we'll see what happens with his deal. But Steelers want him back. So if he demands $40 million, he might get 40.
Might get it.
This team definitely has a history of trading for, or not trading, but signing big contracts to big-time defensive players. So they made T.J. Watt the highest-paid defensive player in football history the last time they signed him. So they might do it again this time around. But, yeah, I would consider it, Chris. Pickens is a good player, and, if he has a great season and it would cost less to franchise tag him, I mean, this team is on a 2-year timetable, Coop. So, have him on his final year of his rookie deal this year, franchise tag him for the second year of that kind of 2-year timetable, and then take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of a really, really good strategy to me, Chris.
After the next 2 seasons, the window completely changes.
Yeah, after the next 2 seasons, Cam Hayward is retired. This team can probably look towards a little bit more towards a long-term kind of option. Because at most, it appears Aaron Rodgers would play 2 seasons, and that's it. That would be the only 2 seasons he would play. So, this might be a new era in Pittsburgh, a 2-year timetable to get Cam Hayward a ring, and, that might be that. And then, we can't really look beyond that because they don't have anything in place for beyond that.
That's correct.
So, that's where we're at this point in time. It is 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time on the East Coast.
There's nothing.
And there's nothing to this point when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers saga again. So this thing continues to drag out. And like I said, Coop, I have 2 theories as to why this is dragging out. Number one, Aaron Rodgers is just taking his sweet time. And, he is a guy that the last time he made a major decision about his career like this, he spent 4 days in the darkness to decide what he wanted to do.
He might be in the darkness as far as we know.
As far as we know. But then... But then again, there's also a second reason why this could be dragging out, and that could be the Minnesota Vikings.
Could be.
Because Aaron Rodgers might be holding out for Minnesota to give him a call. Because, if you look at the situation between the Steelers and the Vikings, I don't think anybody's going to say the Steelers have the superior kind of opportunity to win a Super Bowl next year. Minnesota has maybe the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. They got Jordan Addison, who is a really, really good number 2. TJ Hawkinson is a tight end. They've made major investments on the O-line this offseason and on the D-line, which was kind of their 2 crutches last year. They got an incredible head coach who is an awesome offensive play caller in Kevin O'Connell. They've got one of the best defensive coordinators in the league in Brian Flores. So like the Vikings, they have a roster that's set up to win a Super Bowl. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, and Minnesota has not given you a firm yes or a no as to whether or not they're going to give you a contract, wouldn't you want to wait? Wouldn't it make sense to kind of, let Minnesota make a final decision on if they want you or not before you make a final decision? That makes sense to me.
I'm with you.
If I was Aaron Rodgers and Minnesota was like,
you think if Minnesota gives him a firm offer, he's a Viking?
Yes. I think he is. If Minnesota gives him a firm offer that is somewhat competitive with the offers Pittsburgh and New York has given him, I think he's a Minnesota Viking because it's the best situation.
It is.
If I'm 41 years old and I want to win one more Super Bowl, the Vikings give you the best chance to do that. But Minnesota at this point, according to Albert Breer and Diana Rossini, are still quote unquote seriously considering making an offer to Rodgers, but haven't yet. So that would tell me, okay, maybe Rodgers is waiting for Minnesota to give him a firm answer before choosing between Pittsburgh and the Giants. And I think if it was between the Steelers and the Giants, it will be Steelers. So I think what's going to decide this saga, guys, is whether or not Minnesota gives him an offer or not. If they give him a firm no, whenever that happens, I think he'll be a Steeler. But if they give him a firm yes and they offer him a contract that's competitive, I think he's a Viking.
Fair enough.
That's where I think this situation is at right now.
By the way, Ian Rappaport, I don't know if we knew this, he said that he expects Cooper Kupp to make a decision today.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's going to be Seattle, not the Pittsburgh Steelers. Slim Thug, what's up, my man, says, would you take Omarion Hampton or Walter Nolan in the first round?
I'd probably lean Hampton, right?
Tough call because Walter Nolan is a bit raw. And right now, Walter Nolan would not be at the top of my list of DTs to take in round 1. I would rather have Kenneth Grant. If this is Omarion Hampton versus Kenneth Grant, I'd rather take Grant. If this is Omarion Hampton versus even Derek Harmon, I would take Derek Harmon. I like Harmon a little bit more than I like Walter Nolan.
You like Harmon more than Nolan?
Yeah, just a little bit. They're both really good players, but I would probably go Omarion Hampton, Slim Thug, just because I think Nolan, although he's super explosive and he's got the best, I think he's got an incredible motor. His motor never stops. His effort is crazy good, all right, which I love. But, this team and this offense is going to really depend on how good of a run game they have. And you got to get your Saquon Barkley, your Derrick Henry, your Josh Jacobs, your whatever, your star running back in this group. And, if you're telling me if Omarion Hampton in round 1 versus, let's say, Cam Scadaboo in round 3, which one of those guys has a higher chance of doing that? I'm going to go with Hampton. I think Hampton is ready to go day 1 and could be a star from day 1. Walter Nolan, I think, would provide less value for your team. So it's a tough call. Defensive tackle is a very big need at this point, especially because the Steelers haven't made any moves there in free agency to this point. And they have to address it in the draft at some point, but they also have to address running back as well. So if these are the choices, I would go with Hampton. But if the choice is between Hampton or Kenneth Grant, who's a nose tackle who's ready to play right away,
Grant,
I would rather go with Grant. So,
do you think there's a scenario where the Steelers would trade up for Mason Graham?
No. I think that there's enough good defensive tackles in this class where you don't feel like you have to move up for Mason Graham. I think Graham's going to be a top 6 pick, very least. top 7 pick. I think his floor is New York, the Jets at 7. I think that's his floor. But so I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to trade up there. All right. Appreciate all the super chats. Again, $20 to get into the raffle today, guys. Well, maybe it's today. Maybe it's whenever.
Maybe it's 3 weeks from now.
Maybe it's 3 weeks from now. Whenever Rodgers makes his decision, we will be going live, and we will be giving away a Steelers jersey on that live show. It's $20 to enter. $20 on Super Chat gets you 1 raffle ticket, but if you send in $20 on Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal, we will give you 2 tickets. The reason why we give extra raffle tickets for people at Venmo, Cashapp, and PayPal is because YouTube takes a 30% cut and Apple takes a 10% cut of every Super Chat you send in. So we actually get to keep more of the money when you guys send it in via Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal. And if you're going to be helping us out, we're going to help you guys out by getting you an extra raffle ticket. So appreciate your support, guys. At Jack Sperry on Venmo, # Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. So yesterday, McAfee and crew finished up early. They finished up at like 2:15 p.m. Eastern. So we are approaching 2 p.m. Eastern on our show here today.
They're just talking to Shams Charania right now.
Yeah, and they're talking to Shams right now, talking about NBA stuff.
What if Shams broke the Aaron Rodgers news?
Oh, man, that would be funny.
I'm going to go grab some water real quick. Do you need anything?
Yeah, I'm good. Good za. 3.5 stars, I'd say. So, at this point, obviously it's just a waiting game for the Steelers. After they re-signed Mason Rudolph, they kind of hedged their bet when it came to Rodgers. And guys, every step of the way here points to Rodgers being the Steelers' #1 quarterback target in free agency this year. They weren't willing to pay market value for Justin Fields, which apparently was $20 million. They only offered him $15. They weren't willing to pay market value for Sam Darnold. He ended up getting around $33 million per year. I think the Steelers offered around $30. So they weren't willing to pay market value for either of those quarterbacks. They would have taken those quarterbacks at the price tags they were comfortable with, but it's been pretty apparent from the start of free agency that Rodgers was the guy they were targeting. Adam Schefter came out with a report early Monday that the Steelers would target Rodgers, not Sam Darnold particularly. They talked with Rodgers on Monday. They came to terms, but now Rodgers is deciding whether or not to take the Steelers' offer. And right now, if I'd have to guess, my best guess is Rodgers is waiting on a final decision from the Minnesota Vikings. Because it sounds like Minnesota is thinking about Rodgers and adding him to the team, but they're not sure yet, and they haven't officially offered a contract to him. I think Rodgers' first choice is Minnesota, just because of all that what they can offer. They are a Super Bowl-ready roster in the opinions of many. They've got a great head coach. They have multiple 13-plus win seasons under that head coach. They got 2 great receivers. They got a good tight end. They've got one of Rodgers' best friends at running back in Aaron Jones, who's still playing very well. They've got a really good defense. They added to that defense this year with some defensive line help in the form of Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. Like, they've got the pieces there to make a run next year. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, the reason why I would be holding out on making an official decision about Pittsburgh is if I wanted to go to Minnesota. Minnesota's my first option, which makes sense. And they said, maybe we're interested in you, but we're still deciding. So I think that the decision on Rodgers is being stalled out potentially by Minnesota kind of not making a final decision on him yet. And maybe not. We won't get an official decision on Rodgers until Minnesota gives him a firm answer in terms of their interest in him. So it's going to be interesting to see what Minnesota decides and what Rodgers decides. Daddy Griff says, at this point, screw Rodgers, just roll with MR3. and draft a rookie. Even in the offseason, this team makes my BP go through the roof. Yeah, man. Listen, it's an anxious kind of situation for sure. But it's anxious because there's something on the line, right? The thing that's on the line with Rodgers is you either have a quarterback that can potentially play at a high level or not. And, with respect to Mason Rudolph, I think he's a solid spot starter, replacement level starter. He's probably a bottom 5 starter in the league. But that's a good backup, right? You want a replacement.
But that's what he is.
But that's what he is. That's what you want in a backup, somebody that can come in and you can trust to win some football games for you. But are you trusting an entire season to Mason Rudolph? To me, that's not a smart move, especially when you're trying to win now. The Steelers have constantly said, Omar Khan has constantly said, we want to win a Super Bowl. We think we're close to winning a Super Bowl. So it just doesn't make sense to go with a guy in Mason Rudolph as your starter and then draft a rookie who also has pretty much zero chance of winning you a Super Bowl this year. So if the goal is to win a Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson clearly give you the best chances to do that. And because you have Mason Rudolph under contract, you now have the freedom to wait. All right? You have the freedom to wait for Aaron Rodgers now, which is exactly why they signed Mason Rudolph. So as stressful as it is, as frustrating as it is that Rodgers just won't sign with the Steelers feel pretty good about their chances of landing him, and they're willing to wait for him. They like him that much. All right? Mike Tomlin loves Aaron Rodgers that much as a player.
It is the difference between having a chance to win a Super Bowl and not.
Yes, and that's why they're willing to wait.
Yep.
So, I understand the frustration. I understand people saying, man, screw this. Let's just move on already. But, clearly the Steelers feel like Rodgers is worth it. Now, maybe they're wrong on that. Maybe he sucks next year. And we've talked about the possibility of that. I am not somebody that comes up here and tells you guys Aaron Rodgers will for sure put the Steelers in Super Bowl contention. I have never said that. What I have said is he probably gives you the best chance. And for a team that's trying to win now and trying to get Cam Hayward that ring before he retires, your focus has to be on which quarterback gives you the best chance. And that quarterback is Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. So because you have Mason Rudolph as your fallback option already in the building, I'm willing to wait as long as it takes for Rodgers to make a decision. And that's where we're at this point.
How long are we going to have to wait, Aaron?
Because, here's another thing, too. Aaron has a public appearance tomorrow.
Yes, he does.
What is he going to do? Show up there and he's going to take a million questions about what team he's going to play for and he's going to say no comment?
What if it's just I've already made my decision. I'm not telling you guys.
Well, it's if you've made a decision,
just fucking
why aren't you telling the team? Yeah. Why aren't you signing the contract? Why are you dragging it out if you've made a decision? But like I said, the thing that makes sense to me, and again, guys, sometimes with these reports and all this stuff, you have to remember this is smokescreen season. Lots of lies are being told. It's a lot of games being played in the media. Sometimes you just have to put on your critical thinking cap. And, what would make sense to me is Rodgers' preference, his number one choice of where he would like to go is Minnesota. But Minnesota hasn't given him a firm yes or no yet. And he's waiting to get that firm decision from Minnesota from what they want to do before he officially makes his decision. That's what makes sense to me. All right? Now, maybe Rodgers is just a nut, and he's in the darkness, and
he might be.
And he's just taking forever, and maybe he does love all the attention on him, and he's just basking in the sunlight of the entire world waiting on his decision. Maybe that's the case.
Maybe he genuinely doesn't know that the entire world's waiting on his decision.
Well, that's what McAfee says.
Yeah.
McAfee says that he thinks he's gone complete media blackout.
And he just has no idea.
And he has no idea what people are saying about him right now. And honestly, I don't think Aaron cares.
Oh, we know he doesn't care.
I don't think he cares what people think of him. Okay? He's definitely somebody that dances to the beat of his own drum. But I'm just saying what makes sense to me. If I was in Aaron Rodgers' shoes, what would make sense to me in terms of not making a decision to this point would be my number one choice is Minnesota. Minnesota has told me that they might send me an offer, but it's not a hard no. And it's not as hard yes. So he's waiting for that decision from the Minnesota Vikings before he makes a final decision. And that makes sense to me, guys. It does. All right? Like, if that's the case, I think Rodgers is perfectly within his right to wait because another team is keeping him in the dark. And another team is making him wait. Because there's no clock on this thing. It's not like he has to sign by a certain date or he can't play football
by
next
the
year.
Wednesday of week 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the yeah, exactly. And I understand that this fan base has PTSD from the Brandon Ayuk situation because how many times did we feel like a Brandon Ayuk deal was happening that day, and then we just kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then eventually we got an answer before week 1, just before week 1, and it was not the answer we wanted. And then the Steelers were stuck with Van fucking Jefferson as their wide receiver 2 for last season.
And then they traded for Mike Williams and didn't use him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this situation has the potential to be that. But Mike Tomlin obviously still loves Aaron Rodgers as a player. He called Aaron Rodgers an elite quarterback last season. All right? That shows you how much Mike Tomlin still likes the skill set of Aaron Rodgers. And he's putting his job, I'm not even joking, he's putting his job on the line for Rodgers to choose the Steelers. Because if he doesn't choose the Steelers, and if the Steelers don't bring back Russell Wilson after that, and this team has Mason Rudolph and a rookie, the chances that this team misses the playoffs next year is pretty fucking high.
So you don't think there's a scenario where the Steelers are like, here's our deadline, either you're our quarterback or we're moving on?
Yeah, no, because I think that's why they made the move for Mason yesterday. Because, like, whether Rodgers signs today or whether Rodgers signs a month from now, you're still getting Rodgers if he signs with you.
What a joke.
So I think the Steelers are willing to wait as long as it takes. Now, like I said, I think. All right, so a little update from Diana Rossini. She says Aaron Rodgers is giving the Vikings time to discuss if they want to get into discussions about signing him. Nobody really knows what is going to happen with this saga, just like the Brandon Ayuk thing.
God damn it!
So, according to Rossini,
no end in sight.
My theory is correct.
If the Vikings offer him, he's a Viking.
Yeah, it sounds like Rodgers is waiting on the Vikings to potentially put their hat in the ring. So I think not the Giants. Sorry, Marshall. He's not. I don't think he's going to the Giants. That team is not ready to win now. He needs to go to a team that's ready to win, or at least has a chance to win right now.
Which the Steelers are.
Which the Steelers are, in my opinion. Definitely more than the Giants. So it comes down to, in my opinion, if the Vikings decide to put their hat in the ring. And right now, everybody is shitting on Aaron for not making a decision, but everyone should be shitting on Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell because they haven't made a decision.
Yeah.
They can't make a fucking decision. It's day 5 of NFL free agency. They don't want to do what they're.
Let's go.
They don't know what to do with their starting quarterback situation. Are you sticking with your top 10 quarterback, or are you going in with Aaron Rodgers? Make a fucking call, guys.
Gary Frank, I think Monday the drawing should go up to 2 jerseys because we're going to be here another week.
It's a funny point, Gary. But, goodness gracious.
Fran McCaffrey's getting fired.
So I did talk with our Vikings host today.
Mr. Patrick Seaman.
Mr. Patrick
Friend
Seaman.
of the show.
Friend of the show. He's a great guy. And he told me he thinks there's a less than 1% chance they sign Aaron Rodgers. So it's like,
I think it's more than that.
I think it's way more than that, based on the reporting that we're hearing. Now, at this point, it sounds like the 2 teams that have offers on the table are the Giants and the Steelers. The question that should be on everybody's mind right now, and what's going to shape this offseason for the Steelers at this point, apparently, is going to be, do the Vikings go with Aaron Rodgers? Do they eventually decide to pull that trigger and put their hat in the ring here? Or do they decide, no, we're good, we're going to stick with J.J. McCarthy? Which, by the way, if I'm them, is what I would do.
You'd stick with J.J. if you're them.
I'd stick with J.J. I don't want to risk pissing him off.
Yeah, I agree.
The longer this goes on, though, the more it's a creeping suspicion.
He's a Viking.
He's gonna be a Viking.
I think so too.
Just because, like, it definitely seems at this point for him to wait this long, like he wants to be a Viking, guys. Like, that's what would make sense to me. He wants to be a Viking, and he wants to see if they're gonna throw their hat in the ring, and if they do, what their offer is. Now, the reports are indicating that Rodgers wants a 2-year deal. I don't think Minnesota would be willing to do that.
You think they'd go one year?
I think they'd give him 1 year, and they would offer him less money than the Steelers and way less money than the Giants. So if money is a factor in this discussion, I don't think Minnesota is going to be competitive. But I think everybody in this chat room would agree the Vikings give Rodgers the best chance to win. So would he be willing to just take that 1-year deal at $10 or $15 million?
If he's about winning.
Would the Vikings sign him for 20? Like, what would be the Vikings' number that they'd be willing to sign him for? That is a big discussion that needs to be had. Justin says we're doomed. I don't think we're doomed. I still think there's a pretty decent chance here that the Vikings say no thanks on Aaron Rodgers. Now, what worries me, Coop, is that they did offer a contract to Sam Darnold. They did offer a contract to Daniel Jones, 2 veteran players that could potentially win the starting job out of camp over J.J. McCarthy. And here's another thing that you have to consider, too. The Vikings would have to promise Rodgers the starting job. Like, there's no telling Aaron Rodgers, you're competing with J.J. McCarthy for the starting job next year. Like, you are straight up saying, Rodgers is our starter for next season if you sign him.
Oh, yeah. And then you have to have that difficult convo with JJ.
Yeah, and then you have to have that conversation with J.J. McCarthy. And, you know, I think it's really going to come down to how well is JJ's rehab doing.
Like, yeah, is he ready?
Apparently, he lost 35 pounds after his surgery, his meniscus surgery last year. Apparently, he's made it all the way back. Apparently, he's at 210 now. So apparently, he's built himself back up. And all the reports are indicating, from Patrick Seatman at least, when I talked to him this morning, that J.J. McCarthy is going to be ready to play week
100%.
1. He's going to be 100%. But let's face it, he would be in his first year of his NFL career. He's essentially a rookie. Rookies don't win championships, ladies and gentlemen. And people making their first playoff appearances usually don't win playoffs.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen very often. So if the Vikings are making a decision between who gives them a better chance to win a Super Bowl this year, Aaron Rodgers or J.J. McCarthy, you can make a legitimate argument right now that it's Aaron Rodgers.
You absolutely could.
Especially in that offense with J.J. McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell. Imagine going from Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive play caller to Kevin O'Connell.
That'd be nice for Rodgy.
It would complete the Favre arc.
Yes, it would.
Listen, man, I grew up in Minnesota, okay? I was there when Brett Favre went to Minnesota.
He was hated.
He was hated by the fan. It was a move that was hated by a lot of people. And then when he started slinging that thing, like, it was one of the craziest, like, sports environments I've ever encountered from a fan base. It was the Vikings fans rallying around an old fart in Brett Favre.
Who they hate.
Who was throwing bazookas. He still had a bazooka, man.
Oh, he did.
He had an amazing season in 2009.
He absolutely did.
Like, could Rodgers, fulfill the prophecy in Minnesota?
Luis D. Vikings are supposedly going with McCarthy.
Yeah, and Luis D. is referencing a report from Schefter a couple days ago where his sources inside the Vikings building tell him that they're sticking with Aaron Rodgers. So right now, McAfee is talking about Diana's report. He says, here's what you need to know. The Vikings are having discussions about what they want to do at quarterback and if they want Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is giving them time and waiting to hear from Minnesota.
What a joke.
Sperry knows ball. What have I been saying the last couple days? Everyone's been shitting on Rodgers, calling him a prima donna, calling him an attention whore.
I said no. You're wrong.
It's Minnesota's fault. It's on the Vikings. And people are shitting on Rodgers when he is doing exactly what he should be doing right now, which is he's waiting for Minnesota.
Minnesota!
Justin says, hey guys, love the show. I've been around since 12K subs.
Appreciate you, Justin.
Justin, you're a real one, man. Yesterday I called you a little devil because, we don't agree all the time, but I love you. I love you, man. He says, what's the plan for the 100K sub?
We don't have a plan yet.
No, I do.
Oh, I don't know of this plan yet.
My plan is to get there by the end of next season.
Well, no, he means once we get it, I think.
Well, so we actually have a wall. We actually have a wall here at Chat Sports of all the channels that have made it to 100K. Raiders, Cowboys,
Bears.
49ers, Bears, Eagles. I think we only have 5 right now, correct?
No, there's 6.
Maine.
Yeah, Maine.
So we only have 6 channels in Chat Sports right now that have over 100,000 subscribers.
We plan on being 7.
We plan on being number 7 because we plan on the Steelers getting that 7th ring, baby.
Oh, yeah.
So
we'll see you in Santa Clara.
That's our goal, is to get to 100K by the end of next season. And with your guys' help, we can get there. Right now, we're at about 78K.
We are at 78,122 right now.
So it appears at this point in time,
we are not close. I don't think we're close.
Well, it depends on what Minnesota gives them an answer. It really does depend on what.
It could be in 5 minutes. It could be in 5 weeks.
Everybody is obviously, because Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, people think it is his decision. But really, it's coming down to Minnesota, not giving him a hard answer. That's what it's coming down to. Rodgers wants to play in Minnesota first and foremost. I think his second choice is Pittsburgh. I think the second Minnesota tells him no, he's agreeing to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. All right? I think the Giants are done. I think the Giants are out of it because I don't think they provide him with the infrastructure to win right now. I don't think they provide him that. I think Aaron Rodgers is either going to Pittsburgh or he's going to Minnesota. And
you think the Giants are out?
I think the Giants are out. I think. Now,
you don't know, but you think.
I don't know, but I think.
Okay.
If I were Rodgers, I would not be considering the New York Football Giants. All right, and again, sometimes you got to use your thinking cap because there's media games that get thrown around out there, and it's not all true. All right, so sometimes you have to do your critical thinking yourself here, and when I think about what makes sense for a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who cares about legacy, who probably cares about winning at this point in his career, Malik Neighbors and nobody else with a bad O-line and a questionable run game, it doesn't appeal to me if I were Aaron Rodgers. The Pittsburgh Steelers appeal to me a lot more, and then the Minnesota Vikings appeal to me even more than the Steelers do because of their situation. So, looks like McAfee is wrapping up once again early.
They are done.
So they are done. So to kind of wrap up this show here, guys, at this point, what appears to be the situation is Aaron Rodgers is waiting on the Minnesota Vikings to give him an offer or not.
If the Vikings do give him an offer?
If the Vikings give him an offer and it's acceptable to him, I think he's going to be a Viking. But if the Vikings say, you know what, Aaron, we're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. He's our guy. I think Aaron immediately calls Pittsburgh and he says,
get a deal done.
Let's get a deal done and let's sign this contract. But until Minnesota nuts up here and gives them an answer and stops pussyfooting around on this decision, we're not going to have an answer. So when is Minnesota going to decide? I don't know. I can't say I have a solid answer.
When there's a decision either way.
They've had multiple days to think about it at this point, and they haven't come to a decision. So we'll see what Minnesota decides. We'll see what Aaron decides.
When there's a decision either way, we'll be live.
And whenever that decision comes, we will be live right here on Steelers Talk to give away a Steelers jersey eventually and break down the Steelers quarterback situation for 2025. I still believe in my heart of hearts here, Coop, that even if Rodgers signs with Minnesota, I don't think Russ will be signed with a team by then. If he is signed, I think he's signed with the New York Giants.
Yeah, maybe.
I still think the chances that the Steelers get stuck with just Mason Rudolph and have to draft a quarterback this year is somewhere around 5%. I still give it a very high majority chance that it will end up being Rodgers or it will end up being Russell Wilson. But the possibility is there that they miss out on both. And if that's the case, that is the biggest failure of Omar Khan's career and arguably the biggest failure of Mike Tomlin's career, which is saying something because he's been here for almost 2 decades. All right, we got one more super chat to get to here. Gary Frank says, I think Rodgers is Vikings' second option. Who do you think's their first option?
JJ.
But if that's the case, then they'd be telling Rodgers, all right, we want you, but as a backup, and he would say, fuck
you're
that.
Crazy.
And he'll say, I'm calling Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree there, Gary. I think.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that either, Gary. I was talking with Patrick Seatman today, and he was saying that he thinks the Vikings might want Kirk Cousins if he's released by the Falcons.
No way.
I wouldn't want Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers, but
as a backup?
As like a mentor to JJ, and like he would start as
that would be crazy.
It would be like a competition with JJ, but JJ would probably be the favorite to win it. The thing about Rodgers, guys, is that if Minnesota brings him in, they have to bench JJ for another season. That's 2 years of his rookie contract they're essentially wasting. So, I don't know, man. If I'm Minnesota, I'm just going with JJ McCarthy.
I agree.
And I would have already made that decision. I would have already told Rodgers, we're good.
Make a choice, Quasi!
So, it appears we're waiting on Minnesota, and we're waiting on Rodgers. We'll see what happens, guys. I'm hoping Rodgers signs with the Steelers sometime soon. Just so you guys know, if Rodgers is still not signed by tomorrow, we will not be live. We will start up this Aaron Rodgers Watch series again next Monday if for some reason he still hasn't signed by then. But whenever he ends up signing with the team or if he retires or whatever decision he comes to, Coop and I will be here live. Doesn't matter what time of the day, doesn't matter what we're doing. When that decision comes, we will be here on Steelers Talk Live. So until then, guys, here we go, Steelers.
Peace.